The regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District is now called to order. It is Monday, August 2nd, 2021. It's 5:15 p.m. Joanne, welcome back. And would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ernst? Here. Commissioner Engel?
Here.
Commissioner Rollins?
Here.
Commissioner Vogel?
Here.
Commissioner White? Here.
Thank you, Joanne. Commissioners, are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. It's now time for public requests. If you'd step up to the podium, we'd love to hear from you.
Thayer, 4821 North Dixie Highway. And I'd like to just reiterate my speech from last month when Aaron wasn't here to hear me espouse a slight increase in the millage rate. And I still stand by that, so you can control your own destiny. And my real purpose in being here tonight is to invite everybody to our Federation of Homeowners meeting tomorrow morning, 8:30 in the downtown community center. And we've been moved from our normal place in this double silver palm room to the Royal Palm room on the other end of the building. So we have a little more space for social distancing for those of you that like to social distance. So anyway, our speaker tomorrow, main speaker tomorrow, will be Dorothy Jacks, our Palm Beach County property appraiser. And for all of us that live in the Boca Raton area, we know our property values have gone up. We just don't know how much. And she'll tell us how big of a contribution the Boca Raton area makes to the county and the Palm Beach County tax base, as well as the sheriff's office and the school board. So come on out, 8:30, it's all free. And come in ideally off of Crawford Boulevard and come in the parking lot on the west side of the community center. So everybody's welcome, and come and have a good time. And that's it for me. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Thayer. Are you making the coffee tomorrow? Okay. Would anyone else like to speak? Nobody's jumping up. Okay, well, public requests are now closed. It's time to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on July 19th, 2021. This was a regular meeting. Do I hear a motion, please?
Moved.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Since Commissioner Wright wasn't here, Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogel?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, our first item of regular business is to establish the date for the first public trim compliance hearing for fiscal year 2021 and 2022 with the tentative budget and the proposed millage rate. Rand, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Commissioners, in your agenda packets on page 8, there's a memo that gives two dates, September 13th or September 15th. We're actually going to take 13th off the table, and we're really left with September 15th, if everybody's good with that, to make sure our legal counsel is here.
Okay, do I hear a motion to accept September 15th, 2021 at 6 p.m. for the first public hearing?
At the Willow Theater, if you'd like to have it for more.
Yes, at the Willow
attendance.
Theater. Anybody just jump right in? Okay, thank you. And a second, please. Thank you. Any discussion?
Well, question.
Yes.
We're only doing 2 meetings now?
We'd have to do our regular meeting on the 13th, and we'll have an attorney here. And then on the 15th, one of our regular attorneys, Jacob or Sam, would be available to attend for the public hearing.
But the 13th will be a separate meeting.
It's our regular scheduled meeting. We wouldn't have one of our two attorneys available for that meeting. Your second one is already booked for September 27th. We're good for that one.
Which
So it would be the
which would be properly legally advertised at no less than 2, no more than 5 days between the two hearings, and legally it would be compliant with the with Tallahassee.
Correct. So this is just for the first public hearing to have on
Correct.
September 15th at 6 p.m. at the Willow Theater.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Ernst?
Yes.
Commissioner Evil?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsong?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright? Yes.
Thank you, Joanne. All righty. Second item of business is the Boca Chica request for qualifications interview. We're going to start off with the first firm and welcome Kimley Horn.
Madam Chair, as you begin to call the folks making presentations, you are controlled this evening by a statute governing specifics of the confidentiality of the presentation. You're sitting as a selection and qualifications committee, not just as the Board of Commissioners. The consequence of which is that the presentations being made by each of the proposers is confidential and privileged, although it's recorded and becomes a public record at some future moment. The end result of which is that it's like having a shade meeting where you're meeting with your lawyer and your staff on litigation. This is not the same thing, but the statute is 286.0113 that would govern the method by which you would hear each of the applicants making a presentation, and each may not attend the other's presentation as well. You have the right to exclude the public legally, although that's not the chair's prerogative or wish this evening to do so. But at the end of the day, you get to sit in a very specific limited legal capacity this evening, listening to the presentation of the applicants before you, and they've been set forth on the agenda as Kimberly Horn, Calvin Giordano, Nicholas Design, and Miller Legg. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gorin. Welcome.
Presenters know the timer will be up on the board for you for the 10-minute part.
Is that good? All right, let me know when you guys are ready to start.
We're ready.
All right. Good evening. My name is Jonathan Haig. I'm your project manager and your prime point of contact for this project. I have more than 26 years experience with a primary focus throughout my career leading the design and master planning of park projects. I have with me today also from Kimley Horn, Jason Weber, a civil engineer and leader of our Boca del Rey office. I have Tricia Richter, a landscape architect on my team with more than 10 years experience, focused on implementing projects throughout Boca Raton. We partnered with my really good friend and excellent golf course architect, Dave Ferris from Sanford Golf Design and the National Golf Foundation, the local thought leaders in the development and implementation of alternative golf facilities. Dave will talk a little bit more about this later. We have Jose Aguila, principal architect from Curry Sowers Aguila Architects, visionary architects and decades of experience implementing public sector projects throughout South Florida. Also with him is Crystal Benford with Curry Sowers as well. Lastly, we are teamed with ETM and Associates. This is Tim Marshall's firm. Tim is a landscape architect and the former deputy director and vice president for the Central Park Conservancy, that Central Park in New York City. Tim was directly responsible for the ongoing implementation and day-to-day management of Central Park. So we feel like his experience is essential to this project because his firm specializes in the design, management, and activation of significant public sector, public space projects, which this is. This is a 200+ acre, essentially a community passive park potentially. With this team's experience, we'll work with the beach and park district to deliver a deliberately planned project designed with facilities in harmony with the maintenance, flexibility of uses, and phase for implementation with programming and activation in mind. Our team is very familiar with this property and the current and past planning efforts to get to where we are today. So we thought we'd just review a little bit. We are aware of the Boca National Club RFP process, and our teams were part of that selection process. Around that same time, we know the city engaged consultants to solicit input from the residents of the city of Boca Raton on potential programs and facilities for park improvements throughout the city. In late 2020, City of Boca Raton acquired the former Boca Raton Country Club, and now that's the city golf course being renamed the Boca Raton Golf and Racquet Club. Beach and Park District also solicited an RFI to the public and private entities around to determine input from the different aspects of the community on what kind of facilities that could be implemented on this project as well. So you've done a lot of good input on this throughout this process. We're also aware of the interlocal agreement between the city and the Beach and Park District and all the aspects that are associated with that, including all the requirements that are needed to trigger as we continue this development. So now what? So the purpose of this project is developing this improvement plan, per the ILA that has the site plan and funding plan components to it. We feel this is best achieved through a common vision. This common vision is one in which Kimley Horn can help leverage our long history as trusted advisors to the city of Boca Raton, as well as the trusted consultant and advisor to the Beach and Park District, as well as developing meaningful public input and project updates to the community to develop the common vision for this project. So as mentioned, the master plan findings support the development of a destination community park with a variety of amenities and facilities. The RFI input you solicited identified facilities with the public and interested third parties would like implemented. So we have a process kind of outlined on this slide, talking about how we would implement a meaningful public participation program to involve not only the city, but also the community. Looking at developing our facility program, putting together the site plan, the common vision site plan for this site, the funding plan, and then determining our implementation strategies from there. So I wanted to go through some examples of some flexible use park projects that I thought were applicable in nature to what this project could be, or what this community, what the Ocean Beach property could become. So this is Baker Park in Naples, Florida. This is a hub of outdoor fitness for Naples. This is they have a connector to the Gordon Greenway. There's a kayak launch at this location. There's a lot of really interesting and flexible public spaces, including a flexible space building that has a lot of community rooms for rental for the community. The St. Pete Pier project in St. Petersburg is a destination park for downtown St. Petersburg. Features a lot of public art involvement throughout the park. There's a lot of flexible spaces as well where they can do community events, food trucks, movies in the park. It's very family oriented with a lot of parks and a lot of interesting spaces. This site was a USA Today runner-up in 2020 for a national new attraction. Regatta Park in downtown Miami. This is an artistically designed park with a lot of really interesting features on it for play, seating, gathering. It's a community hub for this area. It provides a lot of really, again, flexible spaces that have a lot of different uses and different purposes. I'm going to hand it over to Dave to talk a little bit about the golf elements.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. If there is a golf component put on this site, what does that look like? And what will the market bear? What's the right fit for the site? And to help shed some light on this, these are critical questions. We've put the National Golf Foundation on this team. The NGF has over 30 years of experience providing current and prospective golf course owners and municipalities with comprehensive market analysis, repurposing studies, and recommendations to ensure what happens here is the best scenario for the people of Boca Raton. And it's my understanding that you were considering hiring them before the RFP went out, which is absolutely the right idea. And kudos to you guys for having that level of foresight, because we need to determine what is feasible so that we can create something that is sustainable. And if golf is a part of this project, if there's some element of it, there are a lot of creative things that we can do. I understand that there's your other golf course is just a few yards down the road, so we need to look at things as a whole. But just to give you some ideas, some of the creative things that we've done. This is DuPont Country Club, where we took an underutilized 18-hole golf course, created a 9-hole executive golf course, and you can see the driving range. We use the old hole corridors for the driving range. There's a short game area, which You see the kids playing on here. It doubles as a 4-hole little short course for kids or a pitching course for practice. There's a putting course, a putting green. And then we have this spectacular building with these technology-driven hitting bays that you can open up the doors and hit out into the range. There's a restaurant, there's a bar, there's a patio. It has become the social hub for this area. Another one just up the road here is Sailfish Sands in Martin County. This is a project where we took an 18-hole golf course where part of it was in the runway protection zone, and we had to convert it into a 9-hole reversible golf course, the first in Florida, and it also has the technology-driven range with the restaurant and bar. So this again is creating a social hub for the whole community.
Thanks, Dave. So why select the Kimley Horn team? We bring a collaborative, integrated team focused on implementation. We don't want to create a document or a plan that's going to go sit on a shelf somewhere. We want this thing to be an active, integrated park, ready for the community to enjoy. Public space design and management expertise. We bring, with Tim Marshall's group, we bring a level of expertise on large scale public projects that is second to none. And with his management of Central Park, he had to deal with a lot of ways in which to make that project and that park feasibly, sustainable. So he brings a lot of that level of fiduciary and maintenance and management expertise. Dave, with the innovative golf facility design and the National Golf Foundation, our role as trusted advisors to the city and the Beach and Park District, and our award-winning resume of park design. And that is our presentation. Welcome any questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. Very nice. We're going to start with Commissioner Wright. Do you have any questions for?
Sailfish Sands, how many acres was that? The reversible 9-hole course? You know?
I don't know exactly off the top of my head. So it was a 36-hole facility, and that 9 is probably maybe 50 acres. It's not huge.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Engel?
First, I want to thank you all for coming in and giving us a piece of your afternoon. But what I want to know is, I'm familiar with Kimley Horn and all the things that you've done. And it seems like you've done a great job everywhere you've been. But what sets you apart? Okay, what puts you, the other people we're going to listen to tonight also are very good at what they do.
Exactly.
But what sets you apart? What makes you the go-to guys that should take on this project as opposed to the others?
I think that one of the things that Kimley Horn is definitely known for, and what we take a lot of pride in, is our first talking point on our Why Select, and that is that we get things implemented. We are known as a firm that doesn't just plan projects. We don't have a shelf full of planning ideas in our room. We have a lot of shelves of or photographs of gold shovels digging in the sand because we're doing groundbreakings. That's what we're known for. And I think that we've assembled a team that's very specific to the needs of this project, with Dave and the Golf Foundation, covering the golf aspect of this project and their unique look at, how that could be implemented possibly. We've got an architect specialist that specializes in public sector work, and we've got the Tim Marshall with his firm that specializes in these very large scale projects in a very unique kind of consulting that has to do with the management, maintenance, and a holistic look on that level of planning to really make sure this project's a success.
Mr. Ernst?
Hey, Jonathan, thank you very much. I think it was pretty good. I was looking at your proposal, and to be honest with you, I don't fully have a good vision of what this whole thing is going to turn out to be.
Right.
And so we're looking, in my opinion, we're looking for a partner who can help us be very creative. And, you know, your proposal talks about diversity and inclusion, and I'm here to say that golf is not necessarily very inclusive. But we would like to have an environment that is very inclusive. And the only way I really see of kind of breaking up something so big is to look at it in different pieces. Do you have any thoughts or ideas of how you could kind of look at it's such a big 212 acres
Right.
of kind of road go through parts of it, or kind of make it smaller so it's more digestible and maybe smaller pieces? Any thoughts towards that? And I got one other question for you related to your picture of Sugar Sand. So-
Uh-oh. So yes, I do think that this is a big animal to pick up and chew. There's a lot of unique characteristics to this property that are different than if we had a big square that was in a big open field of 212 acres. We've got residential kind of weaved into the property. We've got two major or fairly major roads bisecting, you know, portions of this property. So there's a lot of challenges. I think that there's an opportunity to focus a lot of, I guess, of the more active uses of what we choose towards the road sides of things. It's always good sound park planning to not have to once you park your car, you can get out and not have to cross another street. So that's always nice. So compartmentalizing this park in some ways is going to be good. I think you can take advantage of the little tunnel that's underneath Jeffrey Street to, you know, provide some connectivity between the properties for a trail system. I think I just preliminarily laid out a trail, and I think we can do like a 4.5 mile trail without ever crossing a street. So that's really impressive for a site like this. So I think there's a lot of really exciting opportunities to do out here, and I think we're the right team to help you figure that out.
Have you done anything with public-private partnerships to facilitate, because this is going to require community involvement, and, you know, we expect others to come out of asking questions of what they can do and how we got to come up with something that is good, unique, creative, and inclusive for everyone.
Yes, and I heard your first comment about the inclusivity, and maybe that doesn't necessarily apply to single users. And I think you've shown that there's a lot of interest groups that are very interested in components of this. The good thing is you've got a very large piece of property, so you can accommodate a lot of different people. So that, in that sense, I think that this property is somewhat inclusive.
And then related to Sugar Sand,
Yes,
that's a long time ago.
it was.
So the developments of Sugar Sand just raised the question, would you do anything different today? I mean, you know, I saw the picture. It looked like it was done when it was first evolved and developed, and everything. So it
yes.
lasted its test of time. I will say that. Give
It
you
has.
credit.
I think we did the development of the carousel component of that park. We helped with some master planning effort later that was never implemented. There was a splash pad that, this is probably 10 years ago or more, that I worked on, but I think we pivoted it was pivoted into a different use at the time. Is there anything I would do differently? I don't know. You know, parks evolve over time. Tastes change, people change. You know, a lot of times in communities that even the sports and activities change over time. You know, soccer becomes more popular than baseball and softball. So, you know, with that knowledge, yes, there's probably some things you would probably do differently now, but for at the time when everything was being developed, I think it works great. And you've got a lot of really interesting destination pieces. I will say, I've brought my daughter, I have an 8-year-old. I think I brought her to the science playground when she was 4 or 5, and I was horrified because the thing was so huge. I thought she was going to get lost in there. But, you know, you did it's a good design because it does only have one entrance and exit. So you're able to kind of guard your way in, make sure your kid doesn't escape.
Yeah. And for me, that's part of the success of Sugar Sand.
Yeah.
So it is a destination for people all around. And
It
so
is.
part of the goal here is to have a destination for everyone, the community, to enjoy that such a large acreage. So
Absolutely.
thank you for your contributions to that.
Mr. Rollins.
Oh, good afternoon. It's a pleasure seeing you again. I think I was on the commission at the time we developed Sugar Sand Park.
Mhm.
And I think the splash pad was moved inside to the science playground.
Yep.
And the issues that you were working with there were the environmentally sensitive areas. And in fact, the carousel was originally designed to be in the northwest section of that. And then I think the city determined it was more environmentally sensitive than the other areas were, but I think it was a beautifully laid out facility, and you're right about the science playground. That was nice having just one exit, so
Yes.
entrance, so you get your kids in there. The question, and I was looking through some of the the things that you had prepared. I saw a lot more passive facilities than I did ones that involve recreation. So with 200 acres that you have to work with, I think you combine both of those. And the inclusivity that Craig was referring to, I think you can accomplish that with golf if you have the right type of programming elements and the right kind of person running that facility. One of the things that we're interested in, and Craig alluded to it, was public-private partnerships in enabling us to do more with fewer of our own resources,
Right.
which are pretty stretched tight these days. But with a golfing facility that we have, you mentioned, I think the DuPont Country Club and the Sailfish Sands. Have you heard the term alternative golf?
Yes.
Okay. That's I know of an alternative golf facility in western part of the county where they have a par 62, and I think there's one of these. You mentioned there was a par 61 that was turned under, but with the par 62, that took up about 52 acres of this other facility. I think that's compatible with the acreage that you're talking about, and I think there's been a strong interest in that, in spite of the fact that there's another golfing facility, albeit a different facility just west of where we're going to be. And I think that's what our community is looking for, is some type of a golf component. You're familiar with Red Reef Golf Course. I consider that to be, some call it an executive course. I consider it a pitch and putt because it's not very long, but an executive course, much like what Boca Muni has, I think gets a lot of play. I think they get like 30,000 rounds there. And that's what we're interested in, is trying to put something out there also that will generate, some income for us to
Right.
help offset some of the other costs for the passive facilities. So, and you do know you did show that we're both on the east and the west side of Second Avenue,
Right.
which poses some interesting planning decisions, because I think the city may be putting a road through all the way through, and you're aware of that.
Yes.
So that's a challenge. I guess to wrap this up, put a bow on it, is what are your thoughts about how you would manage passive and recreational facilities, and taking pickleball out of the equation, because we're looking at moving that to, we're considering putting that over at Patch Reef where all the other racket sports are. So
Okay.
your thoughts of how you would merge those together, and where you'd see those components might sit, might be compatible on this property.
Right. So, like I mentioned earlier, I think that there's a good opportunity to kind of focus a lot of the more active uses closer to where you would probably put your parking lots, and that allows for the more passive uses, like the long things like trails and picnic facilities and things like that. More towards the outer reaches, away from the main streets where you'd access the property. Because if you focus on kind of all of your active areas, closer to parking lots and closer to the streets, you're also accomplishing something else, which is probably making some of the neighbors happier by not putting something that could potentially be lit at night or more active during the day, back behind their a house or farther away from where it could be naturally policed by people driving up and down the street. So there's some crime prevention through environmental design aspects to the way some of these parks are laid out as well.
I think there's plenty of room for, the passive facility of walking and trails, and that has
Right.
been mentioned. Um, but I'm just wondering if you were to put a pin on the map there and indicate this is where I'm just using an example. Where would you suspect the golfing activities could take place on this parcel of property?
Well, Dave has told me that,
Mm.
hang on.
The whole thing,
I know what
no.
I'm doing.
Yeah. There we go.
This and this,
Well,
but
yeah,
primarily this.
those are the two, that's the portion of the site that will make a golf course architect drool because the topo is so great. But I also wanted to mention that depending on what goes in here, I think you look at it as a whole, and maybe there's synergy between what's down the road and what you put here. Traditional golf versus this, alternative golf. And, golfers are coming out in record numbers now. National Golf Foundation, numbers are through the roof with the interest in golf. And part of that is these alternative golf sites are feeding into traditional golf. People come to Top Golf and then go out and want to try playing traditional golf. So I think the two, if you look at it as a whole, we can create something really interesting. If golf is, I don't want to.
Well,
I
we
know
don't
it's
really know
still in
where,
the
we don't
air,
know
so-
where it's going to go
Right.
with the community input, but I can tell you is that we've had a lot of interest in golfers, especially those that are losing a course at Boca Community if that property closes. Seniors and the young people also, are the young people especially are more likely to participate in an alternative golf course because it's not as big and threatening and long. You got maybe 10 par threes and 8 par fours shoehorned in there. And I think you can do that safely in 55 acres.
There's
And
so much potential.
so, but the only other thing I would say is that we've looked at those parcels on the east side there, and while they have the length, the width is a little bit of a problem, and trying to put anything more than a shorter course than 60 to par 62. That's the reason why I was looking at another location. But I appreciate your input. Thanks for listening to my comments, and we'll look forward to hearing more from you.
All righty, thank you. Thank you all for coming. I do have some questions. I have friends over in Naples who raved about Baker Park. And the thing that concerns me is in your response, it said that it was 17 acres and it cost 14.5 million. So we do not have unlimited resources right now. But there, like Bob and Craig both said, we are looking into PPPs, and we also have other resources, even in this room right now, with some excellent golf pros who have just massive knowledge of the property. Mr. Hurd is here, and just he's been a supporter of us, and he's been just wonderful. So as I said, our resources are not unlimited. The
Right.
St. Pete Pier approach, it said it was 19.5 acres for $90 million.
That included a lot of like architectural elements and pier improvements too. So that's
Okay.
a little bit inflated. But yeah.
Okay. All righty. Are there any other things that you would suggest as far as Mr. Weber, particularly as far as the alternative golf? It could be have you ever heard of Goat Hill out in Carlsbad, California?
Goat Hill? I have not heard of Goat Hill.
It's a community park that encompasses the elements for the kids, like little putting areas and sand areas for the kids to play in. It has an executive course. It has disc golf or frisbee golf or whatever. And I think that is more of what the community would like to see is, I would love to see an executive course because I'm getting up there and I'm in those seniors, but we also want to get the kids involved. We really, the FAU has expressed an interest of having a learning center somewhere on the property so that FAU, Lynn, the high schools could all have a practice area that may not be available at Boca Country Club.
Right.
So just throwing that out there for ideas and thoughts for you guys to throw around. The walking trails also have been a big thing with our community.
Mhm.
And we're not going to be able to do everything all at once. It will
Right.
have to be phased.
Right. And that is the challenge, is that there is no really established program. There is going to be an upfront public participation, city participation program that we need to do to just figure out what we're going to do. And then the determination of that funding program and how to phase that and what actually makes the cut facility wise is going to be, how we determine what that budget ends up being. So I think that that's all really important.
Have you ever worked with groups, municipal groups that go out and get donations from the public? Like corporate donations or anything like that?
I'm not sure if we've worked with a group that's solicited donations, but we do have a very active group within our firm that is a grant funding search. We actually have an app that we use internally. That's a what's it called? Grant Source, and we use it to help identify readily available funding and potential grant sources for a variety of projects. So we've been able to secure like fairly significant grant monies for larger projects like this. Not promising anything, but it's something that we can engage on our side to help figure out how we can fund this project. And that'll be a part of our funding plan.
Would we be candidates for something like that?
Absolutely.
Oh, yay. Okay.
South Water Water Management Authority?
But-
And then like develop some wetlands around that area. That and then funding. I more natural areas.
Well, that's actually a great point, because that's one of the ways that grant source tool works so well, is because when you plug in something like a component of stormwater, it'll identify, some of those grant programs. And one of the things we did for Baker Park was a series of connected rain gardens and native plantings that helped mitigate the stormwater for that site. And yeah, that's how part of that park was funded.
Okay. Any other questions for this wonderful group?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next group is Calvin Giordano.
Madam Chair, for the record, the applicant that just presented from Kimley Horn, they've all left the room for the record, and they're no longer in the room. And you have the privilege and the confidentiality of meeting with the next proposer in chambers. Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome. Okay, for the record, this is Calvin Giordano and Associates.
Speaking into here and you guys doing this? Well, good evening, everyone. As she mentioned, we're Calvin Giordano. Oh, this is not the right starting. Sorry. There we go. We're Calvin Giordano and Associates, and we're happy to be here presenting for this project. As you and we are all aware, we have 10 minutes, so there are parts where I'll be brief and try to speak quickly. Sensitive? Okay. I'm Jenna Martinetti, and I am the project manager, civil engineer for the project. Our design lead or vision lead for this one is Gianno Paoli. He's actually, unfortunately, due to scheduling, taking his landscape architecture licensure test this evening and wasn't able to come with us. As you know, that's something that you can't just reschedule. So we really apologize for that. But with us, we have Mike Connor, who's our design lead landscape architect also. And with us, we have Robin Verse, who's our client liaison and Boca Raton resident. We have Dominic Mack, and we have Maria Alonso, who are our landscape designers. And as you can see up here, I've been with Calvin Giordano for over 17 years, and both Gianno and Mike were there when I started. So we've all been working together for a long time, over 17 years. And we've worked together on projects, all of us. We've worked together individually on projects, and we've worked together on a lot of park projects. So we really want to stress the collaboration that we have as a team and as a whole. Also on our team, we have Masuin for irrigation, Optimus for structural, US Utility for potholing, and we have Radis for geotechnical and engineering. This is our org chart, which I'm sure you already saw in the response package that we gave to you, and I'm not going to go through it in detail due to the time, but what we want to impress upon you is the team that we've put together for this master plan, and especially the fact that we have the engineers and the landscape architects. So we have a collaboration of being able to have the vision, which is not me as the engineer, that's them, and the technical support to be thinking about the constructability as it goes through and the implementation of that plan to make sure that it's realistic. You don't want a grand plan that really you get to the end and it gets to design and it can't be completed. So again, as you see, we have a very well-rounded team with the vision, the design, and the constructability aspect. And we also have a construction division in-house as well that can help with that. I'm going to turn it over to Mike, because as I said, he and they, landscape architects, are much better at the vision. So he'll take over from here and walk you through the project.
Thank you, Jenna. Again, we have a full range of support staff in-house at CGA, where we have the engineering, the environmental, the planning planners on staff to assist with anything that might come up during the master planning process. But our offer really is the fact that we have done several golf course conversions, mainly Raintree Golf Course in Pembroke Pines. And so we're keenly aware of the issues with this type of project where you're converting a golf course and the residents that have lived on that golf course for a long time and converting it to potentially a different use. We want to make sure that the property and the improvements that result from the master plan, make the property more functional and make it safer, and they make it a more vibrant public space for all the residents that surround it. How are we going to do that? We're going to do it through innovative solutions. We pride ourselves on designing projects and parks in particular that are custom designed, that have a feature that's relative and significant to the community that it's in. It's not cookie cutter. It's not the same design over and over again, just because it's easy to build that way. So we go out of our way to make sure that you have a custom experience when you're visiting any park that we design. We have decades of park experience. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail. We pride ourselves in creating solutions to specific problems with sites, as well as we've had a lot of success and experience with consensus building and conducting public outreach. One of the projects that we're working on right now for the city of Stuart actually has an open survey online that's been ongoing for a couple months. So we're getting input from the residents in real time, and we're very, very good at doing this for our clients, our municipal clients in particular. We also have a lot of experience and some lead AP on our staff for making sure that our designs are green and sustainable, and we have a strong branding and identity component to them. So our park experience and master planning experience is significant. First and foremost is Patch Reef Park. We did for the district a few years back, where we converted 3 of your fields to artificial turf and took that through design, permitting, and construction. And that project has been very successful. Next, we have North Beach Oceanside Park. This is for the city of Miami Beach. It is a large oceanfront park. It's just south of Surfside. So you may see that kind of green area when you look at the aerial photos with the unfortunate collapse of the building there. But this is a very major project for the city of Miami Beach, a very iconic design that we've created that's under construction now. Next, we have the Civic Center Park in Key Biscayne. Did it? Okay. So this is the main civic space in the center of Key Biscayne. And we've been working on this design for quite some time. There's been a lot of input from the stakeholders. The design has kind of changed a few times as we've gone through the process, but it's finally out to bid and will be under construction soon. Windmill Park. Nope, it skipped again. Windmill Park in Coconut Creek. We worked with SRS Architects on this to rejuvenate the old park and infuse some new enthusiasm to the space. Next, we have Lummis Park. We just recently got selected to work on this again, an oceanfront park for the city of Miami Beach. So we're in the design phase, the beginning design phase of this landmark park. Again, I mentioned already for the city of Stewart, Guy Davis Community Park. It's a complete renovation of this park space that we are in design now. And we're also doing some playgrounds redesigns for the city, or for Miami-Dade County, actually. Miami-Dade County Parks, and they like to use nature play type of playground designs. And so they're updating a lot of their existing playgrounds to incorporate these kinds of nature play features. But we also want to mention that in addition to our experience, we're not coming into this with a preconceived notion of what this property should become, or what uses should become. And looking at the comments, the minutes from the previous meeting in the end of June, I guess, even amongst yourselves, some want golf, some are not sure about golf, or don't want golf at all. So there's still a lot to be done in terms of building some consensus as to what the best use and functionality of the space is going to be. So with that in mind, let's talk about process. We want to keep in mind the needs of the community from an economic standpoint, a social standpoint, environmental, ecological, hydrology, the drainage, stormwater design, existing utilities, and all of those. We understand that that's going to be important to consider, as well as we looked at the comments from the public that were included in the RFP. And so what happened, we went through every single comment, and what happened when we looked at that and analyzed it is 4 major themes emerged. Those are active recreation uses, golf-oriented uses, general site improvements, and other recreational opportunities. And this information is in our submittal as well. But essentially, the recreation activities could be things as disc golf, multi-use trails, exercise equipment, pickleball courts, even some more active recreation as well. Golf activities could be driving range, a 9-hole executive course, putting greens, and the like, as well as a learning center or a golf academy. Those were things that came out. General site improvements would be, buffering and screening and creating some separation between the privacy and public areas. So understanding the design issues is key. Looking at the site, again, privacy concerns, security issues, low impact development, green infrastructure design.
Mike, I think we've come to our 10 minutes. I apologize, but I want to give the commissioners time to ask you
Sure.
all questions because
Okay.
we had a very comprehensive notebook from you and we thank you very much. That was impressive.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wright, would you like to start off with asking Calvin Giordano the questions?
Mike, will you leave that up there for a moment, that slide up there,
Which one?
the
This
one you have there, right there?
Okay. Yeah, we have experienced a lot of grant experience from different types of agencies and different types of uses. Ones that come to mind for this would be, the Florida Parks and Rec grants, the stormwater and environmental grants. We've done a lot of those for Weston, the city of Dania Beach. They did a park. We got grants, helped the city get grants for that. So, we've done everything from doing all of the application and everything for the city, or just assisting the city staff and helping them with graphics and exhibits and guiding them and their staff doing it. So we've done it both ways. We've all in or just kind of partially, assisting.
It from, from the history of the property and things like that. How much more public input would you do for the project?
Well, I was just about ready to get to our process or workflow kind of drawing chart, but we envision at least one initially kind of towards the beginning of the process. And then once we start to develop some ideas and concepts and themes, then having some back and forth, not only with the staff of the district and the board, but also the public at that point as well. And then do the draft document, master plan ideas, or plan itself and implementation feasibility, and then probably having one more.
Go.
Thank you for coming in. I just want to say, you mentioned Pat Sharif before. I was very happy with the job you guys did, considering some of the problems we had with Mother Nature's lack of cooperation. What I'm thinking about here is we have a situation where there are several, I don't want to say conflicting, but there are different schools of thought as to how this property should be utilized. And I'm thinking particularly about the east side of the property, which is our exclusive bailiwick. We can technically anyway, do whatever we want to. Given the limitations that the constraints and the side issues that you're picturing, I'm getting a little bit ahead, but where do you see to use a real estate term, the highest and best use recreationally? Do you see it more as a passive park? Do you see it more as a recreational facility? What kind of combination do you see for this specific piece of property?
Well, my thought, being on the site for a little bit, spending a little bit of time on it, was the majority of it'd probably be a mix, I think, in the end. And I think that it'll probably be a little bit more heavy on the passive side than the active side. But I think that there is a real opportunity, again, in that first slide, to make this a real vibrant public space. You have a unique opportunity Right now, it's vacant, it's dead, it's not really doing anything. When it was golf, of course, it's really a singular type of use. So you have the ability to bring in a few different recreational opportunities here, all in one spot. The intersection of the two streets in the middle kind of lends itself to a more urban or, more active kind of uses perhaps. And then the golf course areas themselves lend themselves beautifully to fitness trails, exercise equipment, disc golf. In particular, there's lots of trees, especially on that east side. It's really rolling with a lot of existing trees. It would be a really nice setup for disc golf, for an example.
Ernst?
When you were doing Patch Reef, were there any grant opportunities there?
I don't think we were tasked with that or ever asked to look into that. I think that they had a budget. You had some money set aside for that, and we went about helping you with some early on kind of opinion of construction cost, and those were in line with what the district had kind of budgeted for it. So in that particular instance, I don't think so.
Okay, and then in this particular case, our challenge is we don't know exactly what we want there. So what we do know is we want a destination place that is like our other properties in Boca. And we would like to make it really creative and unique. You mentioned a lot of the site issues and constraints. If you had no constraints, what would you do?
That's a really good question. With no constraints at all, I think some type of golf activity along with pickleball. I really like the idea of the community garden was one of the things that came out of the comments. So nature preserve, community gardens. I think that we've done a few of those in some communities. We're also heavily involved in the Yellow Green Market in Hollywood. So we kind of know how those things function and how they work, and the kind of space that they need to happen. The ability to have tents set up for vendors and stuff like that for special events. Certainly have the room to do that and to encourage that kind of event planning and specialty uses of it throughout the year. So really does offer a great opportunity.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Collins?
Yeah, I'm reminded of a song that goes like, there's a lot of compromises on the way to my horizons. And I think that's probably what we're going to have to be doing with the community here, because there's a real strong contingent of folks that would like to see some golfing activities. I think we have plenty of room for passive activities as well. And one of the things I was noticing in your brochure, it says experience with activating passive parks. Extrapolate on that just a bit.
Well, again, it's building on the idea of making those spaces desirable for people to want to spend time in them. It's not just a walkway, but there's some kind of special feature or design to it that people experience it. They might take a photograph while they're there, show it to their friends, and then you've got more people coming. So I think that is kind of what we try to do in all of our park spaces, is to try to rejuvenate them in that way. They're also creating that opportunity for those special events and, canopy tents to be set up and that kind of thing. Yeah, kind of have to plan for that so it works more easily on the staff, and it's not a pain to get it set up and take it down. You've kind of thought about where it can be and how it can be done, set up and taken down more easily.
Mike, what if I see you've got a number of different site issues and constraints. What do you figure the top three would be with this property? And I appreciate the fact that you've gone out there and taken a look at the site. That's impressed me. And by the way, thank you for Patch Reef. That's turned out to be a beautiful facility the way it was.
The top three. I think that obviously the existing lake features and drainage swales, it's it's throughout the whole property. And so if you mess that up and you isolate something and you can't drain that properly, that's going to be an issue. So I think looking at that, the whole stormwater management system and the environmental aspect of those existing water bodies and making sure that you're enhancing them and not degrading them. You don't get yourself in trouble with any of the agencies that will be reviewing these plans down the road. That is one. The other one that really kind of surprised me was the underpass for the golf cart. So when you have a busy golf course in operation and golf carts are going back and forth under the roadway, that kind of underpass works fine. But if we take that use away, then it becomes, what do you do with that? So I think making that something that is exciting and new and safe and bright and all that is one thing, or filling it in and kind of getting rid of it is another option. But it does offer the ability to cross 4 lanes of traffic in a safe manner. So I think that's going to be another kind of key thing to look at and analyze and come up with ideas for. And the third thing, maybe the most important thing, is making sure that you have privacy space, private spaces and public spaces. They're going to be side by side in some cases. So how you treat that buffer condition between the backs of somebody's condo unit and their screen patio, or it's a swimming pool and a single family residential, you have to be very sensitive and careful about the interaction of those two kinds of uses, private versus public. So I think those are the top 3 in my mind.
Thank you.
Few questions. How large are some of your park projects that you're doing or have done?
I think the largest one is like 10 or 12 acres. Oceanside Park in Miami Beach is quite large.
10 or 12 or
30 acres, sorry.
30 acres? Because we've got 212. Okay.
Well, the Rain Tree Golf Course was a full 18-hole course, so that was a pretty big number.
So
that was
you said that's a conversion, though. What are you converting it to?
That was converted to park space and more residential. So you had residential backing onto other existing residential,
Okay.
as well as buffers and lakes, and the drainage of it was very critical, and creating the buffering and screening between the existing homes around the outside and the new homes and the parks uses that went into the new part of the site.
If the charrettes and the public input are such that the public is very insistent on a golf park, who would you use for a designer?
We haven't really selected one ahead of time because we don't have a preconceived notion that it's definitely going to contain golf. So we really haven't brought somebody onto our team yet to do that. But
have you ever done a golf course of any kind?
Not really, not ourselves, not directly ourselves.
Okay.
We would be relying on a golf course specialist at that point.
Okay, I like that term, golf course specialist. I like that. All righty. Are you committed to any other projects that would interfere with this size of a project in our area or anywhere else?
No, we have another team that's working on that Lummis Park. Dominic is involved in that, but I would be more or less completely dedicated to this project because it would be, the biggest and most important project that we have going should we be selected.
Okay.
And Jen is a director of civil engineering, so she can not only do it herself, but she can direct others to help when needed.
Well, that takes talent. I understand. Thank you. Well, thank you all so much for coming. We really appreciate all the work that has gone into this request for qualifications. It was impressive.
Thank you. We have copies of our presentation. Is it okay to leave them with the group?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can, just for the record, the second applicant, Calvin Giordano and Associates, have made their presentation and for the record have left the room. And now the room is, chambers are now in the control of the chair and your commission members for the presentation by Nicholas Design, which is also protected under state statute as being confidential and privileged. Recorded in public, but for now privileged. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The Nicholas Design Group. And for the record, I do have knowledge of one of your team members who is an incredible lady, and I've known her for many years. So Tracy, welcome. It's nice to see you again. So if you all would like to start your presentation.
Up and down. Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. My name's Tommy Hurden, and I'm representing Nicholas Design and our partners on this project, WGI and True Club Solutions, a Troon company. On behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank you for allowing us to be a part of this process and in this presentation. And we would be honored to work with you in the district moving forward on this planning for the project. The golf industry has changed and is continuing to evolve while the demand remains high for championship golf. Clubs are putting more focus and attention on the ways to make golf more sustainable, less time consuming, less intimidating, and more entertaining by offering alternative golf experiences. Ocean Breeze has the opportunity to deliver on all of these and appeal to more than just the experienced golfer. We look forward to working with the district and community leaders to develop a sustainable and affordable family-centric master plan concept for the city that will appeal to the beginner and experienced golfers as well as non-golfers. There will be an opportunity to partner with programs such as the First Tee, junior programs, local high schools, and other community groups through collaborating with the district and community outreach. We will better understand what will best serve the community, whether that be state-of-the-art golf technology on the driving range, short golf course concept, mini golf concept, tennis, pickleball, aqua park, just to name a few. There's many other options that we could consider. Specifically related to Nicholas Design, we've been in business for over 50 years, and we have over 426 golf courses around the world in 46 countries and 40 US states. We're a leader in the industry and are always looking for innovative ways to grow the game of golf. And Ocean Breeze has an opportunity to become part of that innovative way, whether it be with a championship golf course, par 3 course, putting course, technology on the range, bringing people into the golf industry, educating them. There's a lot of great opportunities with this project that our group is really excited about the potential for. It's really important right now in the industry to bring what is considered old school golf, championship golf, to what is considered new school golf, which are short courses, miniature golf courses, things like that. Nicholas Design is working on multiple projects around the country and around the world that are bringing in these techniques. And we think Ocean Breeze really has a great opportunity to explore some of these opportunities and see what best fits the community, what the community is looking for, and see what's feasible for everyone. With all that being said, I'd like to introduce Tracy Shepsky with WGI to discuss their firm's unique capabilities and what they bring to the presentation as well.
Thank you, Tommy. Hello, everyone. Super excited to be here. So why WGI and why our team? Well, we've been very fortunate to work on many master plans for many communities. And we've gained experience and we understand the challenges and we've now been able to overcome a lot of those. So we have best practices that we've used through this process. Our multidisciplinary, and I have some of my team members here, approach is really key. We can pull data from all of our other departments. We have knowledge from our civil engineers, whether it's geospatial or structural, mobility, we have traffic, and we can use that knowledge as we're working through the master planning process to try to understand what might be a proactive approach. We also look at oversight as we go through the planning process. We employ over 300 locally, 300 employees, WGI. We have over 600 across the country. Our diverse group amplifies experience in all aspects of master planning and design. We have a vested interest. Most of our employees or some of our employees live in Palm Beach County and some right in the city of Boca Raton. Me personally, I have a passionate responsibility to work on this project. I live 2 miles from this site. I've had opportunities to play golf and tennis at this property for many years. So to me and my team, this project is a significant project and very important to us. We have the depth of knowledge of the project. Like many, we have been following this site for many years. We have read the studies. We understand the history behind it. We're completely looking at all the different opportunities that are there for us to move forward. And it's just as important that we understand the entitlement process throughout the project. So everything from entitlement to construction drawings, we understand that process. We understand the agencies that are a part of that process. We understand the timing that it takes and the costs associated with them. We're currently working on several projects for the city of Boca Raton. We know their staff. We understand the infrastructure. We understand the concerns environmentally. We also are aware of some of the projects that are ongoing. And one in particular is the extension of Jeffrey Street, which is on the table, and how that affects this project and the circulation and what we may need to look at as that moves forward. We're sensitive to the community needs. I am certainly sensitive to the community needs. And we pride ourselves in the innovation and sustainability on all aspects. Our team, myself, it's important for us to understand how the implementation will take place, not only in the design, but all the way through into the end user. So it's important for myself as well as our team. And with that, I'm going to introduce Greg with Troon.
Thank you, Tracy. My name is Greg Leischer, and I'm with Troon. I'm a Vice President of Business Development. And you can see here, let's see. Oh, pretty sensitive. So I represent True Club Solutions, which is a Troon company and a division of Troon, which is the largest third-party management company in the golf space. We're privileged to be a part of this team. And as we thought about this opportunity and how we can help, it's by way of being able to provide a real-world expertise and insight into the feasibility and economics of whatever amenity offering is determined to be the best fit for this location going forward for the residents. So as you can see here, we seek to be a collaborative partner, both with our group and with the city. And we will draw on not only our advisory services division, True Club Solutions, but also several affiliate companies within Troon, Cliff Drysdale Tennis and Real Food, which are other or parts of Troon that provide, again, expertise in multiple disciplines more than just golf. And so when we think about the future of Ocean Breeze and what it might look like, to Tommy's comments, we see something more than just golf, but rather a diverse programming that is not defined today, something that we will certainly seek to get community input on, as well as from the board, and leverage our expertise to help guide to what we believe is and recommend the best solution going forward. I'm based out of our regional office in Palm Beach Gardens, a resident in Palm Beach County, and we look forward to answering any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to start with Mr. Rollins.
And thanks for coming by this afternoon. It was mentioned that you're currently working on other projects with the city. Could you describe some of those projects?
Brett Olford didn't get a chance to talk to in the presentation, but yeah, so we're working mostly with the engineering department. We're working on with Zach Beer on the extension of Jeffrey Street across the railroad tracks to Federal. We have several signalized intersections that we're working on. We've done some bridge rebuilds for the city as well. And then there's some planning studies that we're also doing with the city.
Could you slow that Jeffrey Street location site down a little bit?
We'll do everything we can. We don't know how feasible it is right now. That's part of what we're looking at.
Yeah, well, there was a mention, I think, of other opportunities that you saw on the project there, besides golf. And I'm just wondering what your, I know it's difficult to say what your vision might be because you didn't come here with one, but looking at the property, how would you describe your thoughts about, providing both passive and recreational activities within that 212 acres that were compatible, at the same time providing some, some privacy for the adjoining homes?
Yep, absolutely. As a civil engineer, I'm just going to make sure everything works, and I'm going to hand off to the expert here.
Good point.
From Nicholas Design's perspective, obviously we focus on golf, but all of our projects deal with other components and fitting golf within those components. And a lot of what we're getting into right now is the technology space within golf. And so though it has some sort of golf component, it's involving other things such as, a miniature golf course, but not ones with windmills and clowns and things like that, but on a large putting green and some unique concepts and things like that. And then Troon is, I think, seeing a lot of the same stuff, but you have anywhere from tennis as an option, pickleball. I know when we worked on this project back in 2018, part of our concept, I think, had a water park of some sort, things like that, potential shopping or food, dining, things like that, I think bode well for the property. 215 acres?
215 or 212.
Yeah, roughly. That's a lot. That's a lot of land. You certainly don't need all that for golf. So.
Yeah, I would, I think from a recreational standpoint, we're certainly seeing an increase in popularity of tennis and pickleball, and see an opportunity for there to be a golf amenity that is not necessarily 18 holes, but more of an alternative, a golf offering. And our role is really to help bring expertise into what are the economics of how those pieces will fit together, and work in a way that meets the expectations of all constituents. So we will vet and make recommendations of how we see different offerings of programming together, and then share what the economic impact of that is. We're not cookie cutter. We customize our scope and really try and make sure that we're providing an amenity offering that best fits the community.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to add something to that real quick, if you don't mind. Jason Mahal was with WGI. One of the things I thought was interesting was when we were first met as a group and we started kicking around some ideas what we could do out there. Some of the things we talked about was the potential to have these defined spaces at golf or mini golf or whatever, but also the ability to work in potentially some type of flexible spaces also. So the idea of potential flexible versus program spaces and how those spaces work together was an interesting concept to us. And we started thinking as a team, look, okay, if those spaces are going to exist together, how do we create that design? And from like a landscape architecture standpoint, that's one of the things we're going to be looking at is how do we create these outdoor outdoor rooms, these outdoor facilities and stuff. And flexible spaces are nice. It provides the city with a number of opportunities to do other things than just those programmed opportunities. So we're kicking around some ideas and trying to be as innovative as possible with how we design these spaces and how we actually program the facilities at Ocean Breeze.
Someone mentioned the economics of it and sustainability. Having some component that's an income producing facility, whether it's, I don't know what it could be retail.
Correct.
It could be, but having entirely passive facility may be less expensive to maintain, but
But you're not
certainly,
generating.
yeah,
Correct.
we'd like to have some kind of income producing component associated with that, I think.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the first things we're gonna have to look at from a master plan standpoint is look, what kind of spaces do we want that are more passive versus spaces that we're gonna be revenue generators for the city and stuff. So.
Mr. Ernst?
Thank you. I would ask the civil engineer there, as you work through your path to go, you don't have to get up to, as you work through your path on Jeffrey Street, you may notice a massive tree that is like the tree of life. It sure would be nice if you could just save the tree and work around it, so it's the eastbound lane that's going to be a problem for you. But good luck with that.
There is realignment that'll have to happen, though. So if we can realign to make sure that we save any kind of landmark tree.
It is a very big tree. I hate to cut down a tree, but on the overall, when I think of Nicholas Design, I think of golf. Okay, and so I'll be totally honest with you. What we have here is we don't know what we want yet. We don't know we have some ideas of different community members. We have the gift of a golf course, but what we do know is that we need someone with partnership ability to bring in any kind of public-private partnership capabilities, grants, the ideas. I think I do recall the lake and the ice cream shop and stuff like that. And when we did the golf rounds, I thought that was a great idea. But we bulldozed the hotel, and then we were like, oh, you can't build anything now. It's all going to be golf. And so I'm not in that camp. Okay, I'm being perfectly clear. I think we got an opportunity to do something very unique. And you want to know what you will do to bring in those partners to really make something unique. And I don't know who's best at responding to it, but I think of Nicholas Golf as golf, and that's not what I'm looking for. So.
From Nicholas's standpoint, a lot of our developments are that exactly, their developments. So we certainly handle the golf course, but we work with, real estate developers, hotel developers, commercial real estate developers, all those types of things. So if that's something that the district and the city wants, we can certainly help with some of those connections and partners. That's something where our 50 years of experience building golf courses and developments and communities around the world certainly comes in handy. Though our actual service and deliverable is a golf course or a golf component, we're doing a lot of things outside of just a golf course space. It's definitely, we can help bring in some partnerships and ideas, and we've seen what works. We've seen what doesn't work. If you choose to continue to have golf as part of the component. And we certainly don't think that golf needs to be everything there. We think, 36 holes is a lot of golf these days. I think there's always a demand for it, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to have things that tie into it that aren't golf directly. And to your point, whether it's shopping, whether it's, food, whether it's a water park, all those things are certainly things that we can explore. Sure. Okay. We could certainly a portion of that we could help make the connections and help bring in some of those resources. It's not anything that we specifically can bring to the table, but we can help get those people interested and get them to the table, so to speak, if they're interested. Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, thank you. We are working on a lot of P3s. So we do have we're very familiar with different people to bring in. It's my understanding for this RFQ that really it's coming up with a master plan of what's needed in the facilities that the community wants, as well as the district, and as well as a city. So I think part of that is us coming together as a design team and figuring out what works. And then you go out, at least in my experience, you go out to the partnerships and start to bring them in. To do that at this stage is not typically how our 3Ps have been working. And so I'm not sure that we need to have that part now, although we need to know what activities we want and what type of development we want. And there is opportunity out there for a smaller boutique hotel. If that's what the community and the city and the district comes back with, there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Is that the typical process? Get a master planner first and then get.
At least a design criteria or at least a program. And unless you were to put this out just as a P3 from the very beginning.
Mr. Engel.
Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. I was going to do my comedy routine for you guys, but I know Nicholas has a lot of experience in the golf end. My question would be, as far as projects that are not golf centric, where golf is the centerpiece, what is your experience?
So that's one of the things that we were really excited about when we teamed up with Nicholas, because right off the bat, they acknowledged us. They said, look, we're pretty sure there's going to be a golf course component to this, but we also understand that the city's going to want a lot more. And that's why they wanted to team with WGI, is because that's kind of where our specialty is in it's development, but it's also the public realm. So, and I head up our landscape architecture team. So we do a lot of public projects as well. So, I mean, we've done tons of master planning and conceptual design, and then even construction drawings for a lot of facilities that are geared towards the public. And when I say that, I mean parks that have large amphitheater spaces, a lot of those type of elements that really bring people together. We worked on a lot of town centers, so those towns, and almost all these components, they have a business part to it, where usually the exterior component, we're selling something, we're bringing people, something that bring people into the space, but then how do we design that space for people to enjoy it when they're there and when they want to be there, so we've done a lot of town centers, a lot of parks, a lot of amphitheaters, that kind of realm, and we see a lot of those components working in a lot of these. We've just done, we designed a major renovation actually for a PGA resort, and it was a complete design of their outside. And what they wanted to do was, they didn't want to look at the hotel. They wanted to see, how do we bring more people to our property? How do they enjoy the property? So we did public pool renovations. We did a water park for them, all that kind of stuff. Along that same edge, we work with, we do a lot of signage and wayfinding, these types of things. And that's all about being in the public realm. It's how do we get people to use these spaces? How do we get them to use the spaces? How do we bring them to the spaces? And that's kind of what we pride ourselves. That's one of our specialties, so a lot of those same elements that we would use for public park, a public plaza and stuff, we'd see it for Ocean Breeze as well.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wright.
How we just don't know how much of a golf component will be in there. So in terms of the non-golf components that will be in there, would be WGI that would be planning like the bike trails and the walking trails and the swales and the wetlands, if we have any wetlands, stuff like that. Okay, gotcha. And do you guys have a lot of experience with grants in terms of things like that?
Yeah, so one of the things we specialize in also is doing public grant assistance, as well as preparing plans that meet the grant criteria. We've done all kinds of grants for beautification grants for DOT. We've done tiger grants. So we have a lot of experience with grant. Angela Biaggi with us is probably one of the best grant writers you'll find probably in the state. So we've provided a lot of assistance to public facilities as far as from a grant perspective. So
Okay, and in terms of planning and your sustainability experience,
Mhm.
you try to incorporate that as much as possible.
Yeah, so
obviously.
one of the things we do is we pride ourselves on our ability to institute sustainable practices in all of our designs. We actually have, I think we have 2 now sustainable sites accredited professionals. I think there's only 5 or 6 in the state. 2 of them work for WGI right now and are underneath me and my group. So one of the things we always try to do is make sure that whatever we design, because like I said, we do a lot of different types of development. We do private, we do public, and stuff, but we make sure that we have best management practices in all that work. I mean, even come down to the minute details where we're developing an irrigation system. We provide irrigation systems that have soil moisture sensors, rain stations, all that stuff. You know, we really try to be stewards to the environment, not just the landscape architecture group, but WGI in general. That's one of the things we believe in, is giving back to the environment. So yes, we have a lot of experience in that.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Greg, I have a question for you as with Troon. In the past, have you ever asked for a certain number of dollars per round in perpetuity for management, or how does that work?
Relative to a relationship with Troon directly, or? you're
Well, if
just
we
asking
had,
relative to
if you were
pricing?
going to manage the golf course for us, if we have one.
Sure. So as it relates to pricing of golf, it's predicated on the market, the type of golf offering that's in place. And we then work with our owner or client to determine what that price strategy will be. In many cases where it is a golf offering that is owned by a municipality, there will be varying rate structures that reflect, pricing for a resident versus non-resident.
Okay, and I do have another question. Have you ever done a concept, has Nicholas ever done a concept like Goat Hill or Belmont in Richmond, Virginia? It's, kind of an all-encompassing alternative.
I'm not familiar with it, with the development, what all encompassing as far as,
Well, it's got disc golf, it's got the foot golf.
oh, sure.
It's got a regular executive course. It's got a putting, a unique putting area.
Sure. So-
And driving range.
Sure. So we haven't done one with all of those components, but I think in our presentation, we had highlighted Red Ledge's 12-hole golf park. And they call it a golf park for that reason, that it was intended obviously to deliver a short golf course experience for beginners or kids or someone who's looking for a quicker golf experience. But I think after like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, it's open to people to come play soccer, throw a football around, have a picnic, play disc golf is one of the things. It's obviously off of the actual greens of the golf course because you'll tear it up a little bit. But yeah, so we have done a handful of concepts that cater to more than just golf.
And what was the budget on that?
I don't know that one off the top of my head, but I do know we just built a 9-hole par 3 golf course on 10 acres over in the Tampa area. For the construction budget was like $1.5 million.
Okay.
And that was on 10 acres. So to your point, whether or not you have golf or how much golf, I mean, you could certainly go all the way down to 10 acres of golf, depending on what component, the district and we all come up with. So.
Commissioners, any other questions for the Nicholas Design Group and WGI and all of our wonderful friends here? Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the time.
Madam Chair, for the record, the third proposer, Nicholas Design, has completed their presentation in chambers. The privilege of the statute is still prevailing in the last speakers from Miller Legg, who will be entering the room momentarily. And for that record, for the purpose of the record, they're also making a presentation which is confidential. Although publicly recorded, it is a confidential presentation as I mentioned earlier. How are you?
Awesome. Okay. This button here.
Welcome, Miller Legg.
Oh, thank
How are
you.
you?
Very good. How are you?
It's nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
Begin anytime.
Okay. All right. So we'll try to keep this short, 10 minutes. So first of all, thanks for having us here and presenting our qualifications and really our qualifications to create a vision and make that vision a reality for Ocean Breeze. Miller Legg's been here in South Florida since 1965, and we really have all the services necessary to develop this master plan and then ultimately the design for this for Ocean Breeze. Wow, it's touchy. In improving communities and creating environments, it's not only our tagline, it's really what we do. And what we look to do is create a very unique project here at Ocean Breeze. And Ocean Breeze has a very interesting history, to say the least. It was obviously developed in 74, had the foreclosure in 2016, and then became the sale of the municipal golf course, and then the purchase of Ocean Breeze, and ultimately the Price Fazio concept that you see here in 2019. And then we ended up with the country club. And we kind of said, let's take a step back and let's listen and let's plan what really needs to be happening at Ocean Breeze, because now we have this other facility. So what we want to do is really create a vision for Ocean Breeze. And this thing is really touchy. That vision is not what we see here. The vision is more what we feel is something like this that really can serve as a true recreational amenity for our community. And Miller Legg is the firm that we feel is the right firm to take it through that to that process and create that vision. And we're going to start with a process that's outlined here. It really begins with planning and programming. What we're going to do is take the information, the data, do inventory and analysis, understand that, and then do additional public outreach, get input from the public and what they want to see here at Ocean Breeze. And then develop a program that reflects that. From there, we'll move into the master plan development. And we'll take that program that we've developed and start putting those pieces onto Ocean Breeze. We'll get consensus with the district and the community on that, and then finalize the right team to design that with us. Then we'll move into the project design, permitting, and construction activities. We've done this planning process and this design process with so many communities, including Plantation, Oakland Park, Tamarack, South Miami, as well as the work that we did with the district here at Red Reef. Now, what's nice is the first part of the process that I mentioned is the inventory analysis and the assessment. We've got a leg up on that because some of that work's already been done in the 2019 city needs assessment that was done. It gave us some good insights from some of the desires of the community, including tennis and football, as well as exercise trails and yoga and fishing and boating were some of the things that came out of that needs assessment. Then the district had the wherewithal to say, let's ask our constituents. So you had the RFI that came out earlier this year. So you had a great deal of input on that. And that input included everything from little concept plans to programs and then people signing off in support of these. So from that RFI, there were a lot of things that were really identified, various numerous ideas that were identified, but two that really stuck out was a golf course that was not as challenging as the country club, more playable for all levels of golfers and accessible to our residents at Boca Chica. And the second was a trail system, pedestrian walkways for passive recreation. As I mentioned, we'll also do additional public outreach. We'll work with the community to understand their desires a little bit further than what was identified in the RFI or the needs assessment. So we'll have public workshops in person or virtually if need be. Work with working groups and focus groups, the Boca Chica residents and other local community groups. And from that, we'll develop a program. That program will focus on the facilities, the amenities, and the activities that will be sustained and approached at Ocean Breeze. From there, we move into the design section. And here's just some examples of the design work that we've done with community parks, recreation and athletically focused parks, playgrounds, sport facilities, and even passive parks, like the work that we did with the district, like on the Limbo on the nature trail and boardwalk. We've done a great deal of park, pathway and greenway projects that you see here, all different types that really embrace the natural environment. And we have a great deal of golf course experience, everything from new golf courses to training facilities to renovations. And that's just keeps doubling up. But most importantly, we have done numerous, a great deal of experience in golf course renovation, taking a golf course and changing it to a more diverse recreational amenity. So we understand the unique nuances and unique environmental, community, security, accessibility, inclusivity issues associated with doing this. We did this at Plantation Preserve for the city of Plantation. And we're currently working on Mainlands Park with the city of Tamarack, which is an old golf course. And now is a passive park with trails, and we're looking at new ancillary recreation facilities to bring to them. So we've done that. And obviously we want to make this Ocean Breeze project not reflect its current conditions that you see here, which is really not desirous to the community, doesn't really offer a great recreation facility. Sure. And, but we do understand that there are some wonderful resources here. There is a beautiful open space, as well as beautiful canopy trees that have been saved. So we thought the best way to exemplify the approach and our expertise in doing this is give you a case study. And the case study is Plantation Preserve. Very similar to Ocean Breeze, it was a golf course. It was developed in the 1950s. After about 10 years of being abandoned, it had a great deal of impact on the residents. It really started lowering prices, property values, due to the vagrancy and dumping issues and such on the adjacent residences you can see here adjacent to the golf. We work with the community and identified their desires for this. And we came up with a program that included a golf course, a linear park, trailheads, a community facility, a playground, as well as the golf support facilities. Sorry. Okay. The linear park ran through through this open space and really embraced the historical aspects of the project. One of the things that we did also was buffered between the golf course and the linear park. And what we did is we utilized marshes and green space, marshes and wetlands to do that, to create those buffers. And what it did is not only created the buffers, but it improved water quality on the golf course and actually helped stormwater conditions and storage for the adjacent community. I'm just trying, and that's what's shown here. One of the other things is working with our biologists, our engineers, as well as our landscape architects. This area became home to migratory as well as wading birds. So successful, this is now a birding facility, birding destination. And the red-capped cardinal is the first time ever photographed in the United States at Plantation Preserve. There also was a program for a community center. Actually, it was started just as a golf support center. And we integrated an architectural approach that had a community center that reflected upon the historical aspects of this community, and now is a destination within the city from a community center perspective. We were also able to find additional funding for this project. The wetlands were developed as a offsite mitigation area where developers could buy mitigation credits in here and paid for the construction of the wetlands, their perpetual maintenance, as well as added $2 million for the park and linear green space improvements. So this Plantation Preserve is really a holistic approach and a holistic design for a renovation of an existing golf course in a more diverse recreational project. So in closing, why we feel that we're the right team for Ocean Breeze. Improving communities and creating environments. It's what we do. It's our tagline. It's what we do. We have expertise in golf course as well as recreation and golf course renovation projects. We've done work and have successful work with the district, both planning and design work. And we have successfully done this before. We've successfully transformed a golf course into a diverse, award-winning recreational amenity. And we look forward to working with you to create this vision and making it a reality. So we'll close with that and go from there. Thank you.
Perfect timing there, Mike.
Thanks. Sorry for the control.
You did great. Commissioner Wright, would you like to ask some questions for the team here?
Yeah, on the plantation preserve, what was the acreage or the component of the golf in it?
Sure. The entire project was about 212 acres, 212 acres.
And then how big was the golf course?
The golf course at the end of the day was about 160 acres, about 160 acres.
So it was an 18-hole golf course?
Yes,
or-
ma'am.
Okay, and that was the only component of golf in the project?
Um,
Okay. Mhm. So the trail was around the course itself?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we found through our engagement and public outreach is that the community which surrounded the golf course, they had some security concerns and they didn't want to have the trail right behind their house. And no matter what data we showed them, they said we still have concern about having that trail behind our house. So what we did is we actually designed the trail that, as Dylan said, goes right through the middle of the golf course. It was the first one, according to the National Golf Foundation, that had that actually did that. Took a linear park and ran it right through the middle of the golf course. And really what we did is we wanted to embrace the visions, the beautiful views and vistas of the golf course and let the public enjoy that too, and not without being golfers. So that was another way that we really engaged the community in that.
Well, I absolutely love that because when we were doing the Price Fazio design, everybody kept saying, we can't do a trail, we can't do a trail, we can't do a trail in a golf course
Mhm.
because of the balls and
Sure.
whatnot. So it's really interesting, and the fact that you did the trail through the golf course. And I think the Boca Chica residents are concerned about safety. So
Absolutely.
that's an important component in the planner that we choose, I think. So it's nice to see a project that you've already kind of thinking ahead on that.
Sure.
So it's good to know.
Yes.
And it's nice to hear the grant information as well, because I think that's an important component
Right.
for our project, because we don't have unlimited funding
Sure,
for this.
sure.
So, okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Engel?
Thank you all for coming this evening. I also like what you did here. I think you did a lot of original thinking, a lot of thinking out of the box as to how to fund, how to overcome community issues. My questions are, this property is similar in size to Ocean Breeze, and at least 160 acres was devoted to golf. About how much of that property was devoted to non-golf activity?
The remainder of that. So it was about 60 acres, almost
60 acres, because I think somebody mentioned driving range in there.
Yeah,
And
and that was included in the golf.
that was,
component.
okay,
Correct.
all right.
Yes.
And what was the total cost of the project?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
8 million was acquisition cost.
Right.
For the land, but.
Well, we don't have to worry about that.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
no, no,
That's
no,
taken
no,
care of.
but,
I think it was north of 25 million.
Mhm.
It was north of 25 million. I was gonna
And
say, I don't
how
know if it's
much,
30.
how much of that were you able to obtain through, I like what you did with the development credits and getting things funded, but how much of that was out of the box again?
That was about $2 million, and what
Mhm.
it paid for actually was that whole component of the design, the construction, the planting, maintenance, and monitoring of the wetlands. So that
Okay.
that kind of component, we were able to fund through that.
Okay, thank you.
Think so. Thank you very much. I think it was pretty good. You know, I like the fact that you've dealt with a, former golf course and just to kind of level set, we don't know completely what we want. We do know you've tracked through the history very nicely of where we're at today. But what we do have is some known facts. One of them is that we used to have a hotel site that was a revenue making entity, and we don't have that anymore, but the site itself is available. And we don't have a lot of money so we don't have the 25 million. So let's start out with that. But we are looking for, I think, ways to have something that is financially sustainable, something that preserves as much green space as we can, something that appeals to much of the community. And, in your chart there, you listed golf as high on the list. Keep in mind, we were, a lot of golfers were very focused on the closing of their golf course and what's happening. And from my perspective, the city has not taken ownership of the golf course yet. They haven't done anything with it yet. They don't know what they're doing with it. They're working through it, and I'm not going to get in their way.
Right.
So there's no desire on my part to build a new golf course on Ocean Breeze. And I'm happy that we can talk about that component and give you direction later. But what we're looking for is something that is above and beyond, that will be an attraction for the overall community. And innovative is important. And your work at Gumbo Limbo is precious. So creating that same environment with what we have at Gumbo Limbo, Sugar Sand, to me, is something I would like to see out there, except for Bob, he's pounding on me. So, but what can you do in the development of public-private partnerships? And I think you did a good demonstration. Can you do something more, bringing others to the table?
Absolutely. We're involved in currently 2 other public-private partnerships. One on an existing golf course project that will incorporate many of the items that you see in Plantation, both outdoor recreation. Golf may be an element to that. We're still investigating. And again, is it needed? Is it desired? Is it the best location? And, how does it affect the adjacent residences? That's some of the concerns we're working through right now. But that is something that we are working through right now, and working with developers on that, as well as the architects and the contractors, to figure out what is the best methodology to do that. So again, we have a long history of public-private partnerships, and just as an example of that, our firm in the late 90s was the firm that did the first wetland mitigation bank in the state of Florida. And that was a public-private partnership. And I'll let Dylan add to this because he knew it from the very beginning. It was with the city of Plantation, or I'm sorry, Pembroke Pines, and worked with a property that they own, and brought a developer in. And Dylan, I'll let you kind of speak with that.
Sure. So yeah, basically the intent there was, well, and Mr. Goran's well aware of this, I'm sure too, but basically wetlands that were similar, overgrown with exotics, dumping occurring and so forth. And basically over time, we're able to increase those wetlands, make an active park, passive park, and that where the public could use it. And it's city land. So basically the city didn't have to put money into that retro renovation, and they got some monies to help with the maintenance of those lands. So public-private partnership, something that goes back many, many years for us. And I just want to add on the other project Mike's talking about, a hotel development is in play for that other project that we're working on in another city. And I just want to emphasize, one of the things we try to approach with this is not to say, here's what you're going to do with that piece of property. We know you have a lot of stakeholders who have input, you've been working on it a while. So we really want to work with all the stakeholders of what you want to do, and take that and implement it. One of the things we have success in is not just doing the planning and so forth, but I always take pride in getting the job done and in the ground, because you can do all the plans you want, but if the public can't use it, it doesn't do much good. So we're going to revolve the rest of our team makeout depending on the needs that come out for that, whether it's golf course architect, hotel developer, et cetera. So that's how we're approaching this.
Thank you.
First question is, how did you protect the walkers on that trail through the middle of the golf course? Because I know it wasn't easy doing that, and I probably could not play that course safely.
Well, you'd be surprised. What we did is when we designed the linear park, or the trail that runs through the middle, we buffered it with wetlands and marsh areas. And what we did is we worked with the golf course architect, depending upon the play of each of the holes and the predominant tendencies of each of the golfers, that buffer between the linear park, the linear green space, either was wider or narrower, depending upon where we were. And then the vegetation that we used in those areas was a combination of open water areas, marsh areas, transition areas up to where the linear park was, and then canopy trees. Obviously, we really provided two things: shade for those on the trail, and then protection from errant balls and such. So again, you really had to miss it bad to get it to the to the linear park. And then if you did, there were 3 levels of vegetation that would protect the users out there. And what's nice also is it just doesn't protect the users of the linear park. Obviously, if you're a golfer, you don't want people riding their bike and with their music on or whatever in your backswing. So that's the other thing, is we use that vegetation to buffer the sound and activities on there. And it's amazing. So many people, actually the developer that we're working with on this other P3 project, public-private partnership project, he played that course and he asked us, where is the trail? He couldn't tell, because literally it just looks like a vegetated area. And you know, so it offers that visual connection from the golf course to the linear park, but it is buffered so densely that, you know, this gentleman asked us, where's the trail? I was trying to find the trail, and it's right there. You know? So that's how we achieve that.
It sounds, the description sounds very lovely, and a lot of golf courses are not set up that way, of course, but I like the way that you handle that, because I think that's a wonderful way to do that. As Craig said, you know, the city of Boca has acquired Boca Country Club, and putting in a par 72 18-hole course is probably not within the scope of what we want to do there. But we've looked at least I have looked at some alternative methods, like an alternative golf course where like it's a par 62 and it's on about 55 acres. That's something that I know has been talked about, and something that I don't know where we're going to go with this, because everyone said we don't really have any vision for what we want. I think we know what the public has told us that they would like to see is golf and walking trails. We haven't heard too much conversation about an indoor tennis facility, but there's nothing like that around. And if we're talking about something unique and creative, that might be something that that might be of interest to the public. Sure. The thing that you mentioned, the public-private partnerships, are something that we're really going to be interested in, because of our resources is our ad valorem revenues, and they're mostly all accounted for. Every time we do our budget, we have a little in reserve, but not to the extent that we used to. So that's something that I'm happy to hear that you have that available. I think that answers my questions. You guys did a wonderful job. Thank you for coming in this
Great.
afternoon.
No, thank you for having us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I have a vision of taking a little road trip, and I might want to suggest that we all do that, not together, but separately, to see that plantation preserve and how it's all set up. It could be, just to give us an idea. A lot of the residents have contacted me and said, oh, let's do a golf park. So have you done a golf park specifically?
Golf park, meaning like training facility?
No,
What,
well, it would have a learning center and a range, a driving range, but also it would have maybe some disc golf or the foot golf and areas, because there's plenty of room to incorporate that, as well as, to have maybe a 9-hole.
Sure. Yeah.
And my other question was, What did you specifically do out at Osprey? What was your role when you
Oh.
did some work out there?
Absolutely. I'll let Dylan, because he was very instrumental in making that a success.
Yeah, we worked with Palm Beach County on that, and our primary job was to redesign the water use areas because the county had issued a water use permit, and it was issued at the time the drought restrictions went into effect. So we basically went into redesign with the golf course architect and really tried to reduce the water use and redefine the layout, the vegetation that would be used. We proceeded to get Audubon certification for the project, which is a whole process in reducing fertilizer uses and designing nutrient berms and things like that. So the county actually had the project done for many years. And I guess you're aware of it, but we help facilitate also a lot of public outreach with a lot of the environmental groups and some folks who are concerned about that. So with them, 1,000 Friends of Florida and Audubon Others and Sierra Club come through that process, show them what we have done, gain consensus on the changes that would be made to be able to have that go forward. And that's another very nice project in this area. So yeah,
It's
we helped
beautiful.
Get the county get that done.
Yeah. And it's the vegetation out there is so unique. It's not like every other golf course. So
Yeah.
And I think that, in essence, the golf course was done. They were ready to sprig the fairways and do the tees and greens. And the water management district said, we're sorry, we're not giving you a water use permit so you can irrigate that area. So what do we have to do? Well, reduce your consumption. And they called us and said, please help us out. Well, how do we do this? So that was kind of the story of that. Otherwise, that course would have just laid fallow.
what's involved with getting Audubon certification?
Basically, there's a program to follow of what you have to do, and some of it has to do with some design factors, plant selection, but also how you maintain the course and how you operate and maintain, how much fertilizer you place, a lot of things like keeping grass longer next to a lake edge, so nutrients can be caught as it filters down throughout versus, kind of not mowing everything down to the very bottom and letting kind of nutrient berms and some things like that. So and in plantation, we did it as well in areas where we had before wetlands, we kept a bioswale that can capture the nutrients before it pops off in the other areas. But what's unique at plantation, which I like in some courses, we have a nice sand waste bunker type effect where you can have a clean line that goes into the sand. So you have that filtration there, but you can have some nice visually aesthetic pleasing lines of sight as well. So it's not always just tall grass next to the water. So you're able to incorporate both of those things.
Well, even if, like for one of the portions, if we did like the northwest side as a park of some kind, we could get Audubon certification if we followed the guidelines then.
For the golf course, usually it's for a golf.
Oh, this
course
is just for a
operation,
golf course?
operation.
Okay.
Yeah, primarily for golf course operation.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Commissioners, any? Okay, Mr. Rollins?
One question. When you're doing your plan, you mentioned, I think, the National Golf Foundation once or twice. What golf course architect, if the community elected to have an alternative course there, who would you use to help design that on the property?
Well, to be honest with you, that's why we didn't include a golf course architect on the team at this point in time, because we've worked with so many different golf course architects. They have specialties in what they do. So until we understand the program, is it going to be an executive course? Is it going to be a teaching course? Is it going to be, it just depends on that program. And then from there, we can call or contact the golf course architects that we've worked with or that we're knowledgeable of and engage them that way. Because I always kind of draw this correlation. If I'm building a high rise, I really don't want an architect who does single family homes working on their project. Again, it's kind of fighting an uphill battle. Same type of thing, from an architect perspective. If the program for this project calls for a new community center and a pro shop, and they're combined or are they separate? Really, that depends on who is the right architect for that. So until we get that program done, we don't know who we would use. So I guess my answer is it really will depend upon what the program dictates to us.
Good answer. Thank you.
In case in point, you mentioned tennis facility.
Thank you all very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair, before the speakers leave, they should identify themselves on the record, if you will, because that will then, we know who you are, but the record does not.
Sure.
So just tell us who you are for the record, please.
Mike Kroll with Miller Lake. I'm president of Miller Lake.
Dylan Larson, Miller Lake Vice President.
Yudmila Fuentes, landscape designer.
Michael Bradley, landscape designer.
Thank you all very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And sorry for the clicking.
Commissioners, at our next meeting, we will do the ranking so that we can go back and review the video and the audio and our notes. And that way we have time to make an educated ranking. And we thank everybody very much for all the effort that they put into this. Okay, item number 3 on our regular business is the legal memorandum discussion. Mr. Gorin, would you or Mr. Horowitz like to
Thank you,
lead us
Madam
off?
Chair. Commissioners, good evening. As you may recall, in recent days, the commission requested 2 legal opinions from our office, one with regard to the Attorney General's analysis of the use of certain properties of the district under the special act that governs the district, and also a review of the interlocal agreements and their application, in particular, some of the issues that have been budget driven and have related to some discussions about the upcoming fiscal year budget, connected and unconnected. If you will, Jacob Horowitz is here this evening. He's the principal author of this memorandum, which has been vetted and reviewed by our office very carefully. And with your permission, I'd like for him to just walk you through some of the principal concepts of the documents, and then also be open for questions that either one of us can responsibly answer. I will tell you that this is not an exhaustive document, but it's one which was taken up a lot of time and effort that we researched, and particularly in the kinds of issues that you asked about. We also attached to it a prior memorandum, which we prepared back in 2019, which allowed us to kind of refresh a recollection about how many interlocal agreements there are with the partnership relationship between the city and the district. So with your permission, Madam Chair, if I can allow Jacob just to open the door, I'd appreciate that.
Mr. Horowitz.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. As Sam indicated, we spent some time over the past, month going through again the district's various ILAs with the city, just to provide a general overview and to drill down a little further. You may recall, as Sam indicated, that in 2019, we put together a memorandum which essentially provided a matrix outlining the general terms, termination options, and basic obligations of the district for each of the, I believe it's 10 interlocal agreements that we have with the city, which includes the CRA ILA. In the memo that you have before you on the agenda this evening, we drill down a little further, and a couple things to keep in mind. One is each of the ILAs is not identical. They do have some commonality among the various agreements, but they're certainly not identical in the context of the district's options. Some of them are similar, particularly with regards to Sugar Sand, Swim and Racket, Red Reef, and Ocean Strand. They were all entered into around the same time, and the district does have some general options and obligations, particularly with regards to the budgeting and reimbursement obligations of those particular facilities. The other facilities do have some different provisions and obligations for the district. A few preliminary things to keep in mind. We tried to tie each of the ILAs back to the district special act, which is chapter 2003-13 of the laws of Florida that we reference in the ILA as a district's charter. And the charter really does 2 primary things for the district as it relates to obligations. One is to reimburse the city the actual costs of debt service, of acquisition, maintenance, operation, debt service of improvements to the real property commonly known as the Shine and Butler tracts, which we know is the Red Reef parcel, and there's a specific Red Reef ILA that governs that obligation. The second primary purpose and obligation of the district is to reimburse the city from other available revenues for other park properties, to improve beach and other park properties. However, with the exception of Red Reef, there's no other specific parks or beach properties referenced in the ILA, in the special act. With regards to the 4 ILAs that I mentioned, Sugar Sand, Swim and Racket, Red Reef, and Ocean Strand, others may have similar provisions as well, but those 4 in particular, We know that as the city prepares its budget every year, they're required to provide the district with the anticipated estimated cost that they expect the district to reimburse for the upcoming fiscal year. Prior to receiving the proposal from the city, each of those ILAs provides the district with the opportunity to submit a operation and maintenance plan to the city. The district has the sole discretion, that's the language in each of those 4 ILAs, to establish a full and complete operation and maintenance plan for those facilities. Once the city receives its plan from the district, the city is then tasked with submitting a proposed budget to operate and maintain those facilities during the upcoming fiscal year. Under each of those ILAs, however, the city is not asking the district for a blank check, so to speak. In each of these instances, while the city provides an annual proposed budget to the district has the unequivocal right to approve, to disapprove, or to modify each of the expenses set out in the city's proposal and operating budget for each of those facilities. The district also has the right to audit the city's records and to verify the actual costs and expenses incurred by the city for the operation and maintenance of each of those facilities. So we do have some control over what the district's obligation is. While the district is obligated to reimburse the city, what the charter doesn't say is we're not obligated to contract with the city for the operation and maintenance of each of our facilities. As I said, we know that the Shine and Butler tracks, which is Red Reef, is the only parcel in the district that is specifically referenced in our special act. We have ILAs that govern the other various facilities. We know that each of those ILAs has various terms and termination provisions, some of which could be somewhat challenging in the context of having ongoing relationships with the city. But we do have some control and some flexibility as it relates to what our specific obligation is. We laid out in the memorandum, or tried to lay out, a number of different options as it relates to each of these facilities. One is we don't believe that we have an independent obligation to contract with the city for the operation and maintenance of each of these beach and park facilities. The district has historically done that, but it's not specifically required by our charter to enter into those relationships. We do have an obligation to reimburse the city to the extent that the city incurs costs associated with the various facilities as set out in the charter, but we don't have an obligation to contract specifically with the city for that operation and maintenance. So in other words, if the district wanted to go out and put out an RFP, let's say, to engage a third-party private vendor to operate, say, the Swim and Racket Center or Sugar Sand, there's nothing in the charter that would preclude us from looking at that opportunity and determining whether or not the value that the city is offering in the context of their budget each year is consistent with what we might be able to get in the private sector through some outsourcing opportunity. As I said, each of the ILAs also provides us with the opportunity to audit the city's records and to verify any of the actual costs. So we don't have to take it basically on the city's word that we're obligated to pay whatever they submit as part of their proposed budget. We do have some oversight and some opportunity as it relates to each of those different facilities. There is essentially a value engineering or a prudent engineering principles is the language used in some of the ILAs to determine whether or not the city's proposed budget is in fact what it costs to operate each of those various facilities. And one of the things that we did suggest was taking them on an individual basis, because again, each of the ILAs is not identical. So we may have certain opportunities and options with one facility that we may not have with other facilities. So if there was a specific relationship or a specific ILA that the district wanted to look at a little closer, we're certainly happy to do that. We tried to provide a general framework and lay out some specific options in the memorandum. If there's any specific questions you have, Sam and I are both here to try to answer them. And if there's anything else I can add to just add some additional color, I'm certainly happy to try. With that, Madam Chair, I turn it back over to you and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Horowitz. Commissioners, Mr. Engel.
Oh, that was quick. First of all, thank you, Counselor, for the work you've done on this. It's pretty extensive. A question I have on Patch Reef. We have a 99-year lease with the county. Is the interlocal agreement with the city concurrent with the lease we have with the county? And does it extend for its entirety? That's what I gathered from reading the material here.
I believe that it has. I know the city's ILA is in fact a 99-year lease, began in January of 82. It extends and runs concurrently with the district's relationship with the county. That's a fact. That is correct.
Also, should we decide to use an outside contractor for the operation and maintenance of our properties? And should the city incur any expense other than operation and maintenance in relation to those properties? Are we responsible for reimbursing them for those expenses?
The answers would depend on the facility, because in certain instances, our primary obligation is maintenance and operation. In other, we have some capital expenditure obligations as well. So it would depend on which facility we're talking about and the nature of the cost incurred by the city. But the answer is we might, because under the ILA, we have an obligation to reimburse. If the city doesn't incur any expenses, then there would be nothing to reimburse. But the ILAs lay a framework for that. And again, each of the ILAs may have different provisions in the context of our obligations.
So the city might come up with, say, at Gumbo Limbo, a capital expense outside of operation and maintenance.
They might, and I'd have to look closer at that specific ILA, but we may have the ability to reject a particular capital capital project during a particular fiscal year if it didn't satisfy our budget obligation.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Rollins?
Jake, did I hear you say that, or did I just misunderstand? You said that we're required to submit to the city a budget of expenses?
And again, for Sugar Sand, Swim and Racket, Red Reef, and Ocean Strand, the ILAs provide that we will submit to them a full and complete operation and maintenance plan for each upcoming fiscal year. What we anticipate it will take to operate and maintain that plan. The city in turn will submit a proposed budget based upon that plan, which we have the option to approve, to disapprove, or to modify.
Wow. Interesting comment. If we were to go out for an RFP for maintenance on some of these properties, are we required to give the cities notice of that termination? And if so, how much time? Or can we terminate it?
Termination becomes a very difficult question in many ways, because we have some of our agreements are what are known as evergreen agreements. In other words, they don't have a termination provision, and in some cases they don't expire for 99 years. So getting out of some of these agreements may be somewhat of a challenge, although we've looked at this in some contexts, and there may be some public policy arguments to be made against having these evergreen type agreements. But our obligation at the end of the day is to reimburse. So if there's a third party that we wanted to engage to operate a particular facility or to maintain a particular facility, and as a result of that separate agreement, the city did not incur any costs, then the argument we would have is there's nothing to reimburse the city if they didn't incur any costs associated with a particular facility. We may have some other independent third party serving that purpose.
All right, so let me propose this question. Given our revenue that we take in through ad valorem and what little revenue we get from special interest, which is almost a wash, if we get a suggestion or a request from the city to spend $2.5 million as our share of a maintenance building, and if we look at our budget and say we cannot afford that this year, are we under any obligation to honor that request? Or can we say this is going to have to be deferred until we can build the revenues to be able to afford that?
Well, I'll offer, I think, what may be a specific example. I assume you're referring to the Countless to Hornley facility, which
Yes.
I believe this current budget includes a proposal for the district to contribute approximately 2.2 million to the city to the maintenance facility I believe you're referring to. That ILA contemplates the city being responsible for a proportionate share of the total costs of improvements. And that proportionate share is based on what the ILA refers to as prudent engineering principles. So if the city were to submit to us a proposed budget of, say, 2.5 million or 2.2 million for a maintenance facility at Countess de Hornley, within the ILA, we have the authority to ask the city to provide backup documentation supporting that obligation. That could include whatever engineering principles they used to reach that ultimate conclusion. So there's essentially an auditing or oversight component to the ILA that we could ask the city to justify those expenses.
Well, thank you for that. But my question is, if a request for this funding forced us to defer a project that we have been planning to do, are we able to say to our city partner that we're not able to afford that and we'll consider that in the future? Are we able to defer that? And that's the first question.
Yeah, I think that we may be. I think that we get to determine the priorities within our budget. And if the money is simply not there to pay the city, I think we get to control where our dollars go.
Well, I think so. As you know, financial stewards of our ever revenue and our duties to our constituents, both in and outside the city, if something like that is going to force us to defer a project that's been planned and funds are reserved for, it would seem to me that we should be able to defer that. And I use as the several years in the past where we have done exactly that, where the money has been talked about. And when Mickey Gomez was executive director, we just said, that, you know, that was just not in our scope of operations right now. And as a fact of the matter, that phase 2 is probably one of the primary reasons for the maintenance building being constructed. And I don't know when phase 2 is actually going to come forward. But back to our point here, that's going to stretch our resources to the point where, you know, our reserves are already getting skinny. And we've already looked at a potential increase in our ad valorem revenue. And it would seem to me that the prudent thing to do would be to defer this to another year when we're in better financial condition. And so that's the basis of my question.
One other comment I'd offer on Countess de Hornley in particular, I mentioned that all of the ILAs have unique provisions, or many of them do. That one in particular contemplates a third-party maintenance and provides that if the city and the district were to agree that privatization of the maintenance facility would be more cost-effective than what the city would otherwise be able to do, then the city has the option to seek bids to essentially outsource that function for Countess de Hornley. And there's a unique provision in that ILA that does contemplate outsourcing the maintenance and operation of that facility.
Thank you, Jake.
Commissioner Wright?
Yeah, the one concern I would have about having a third party come in and take care of some of the parks is that wouldn't the city have to reduce their staff and get rid of people in terms of who they have on staff? I mean, if we had them not take care of, you know, Swim and Racket and Countess de Hornley and Patch Reef and Ocean Strand, they would have to reduce their staff, correct? So that would be my main concern, would be loss of staff for the city and loss of jobs. I would hate to see that happen. So my first choice would be to, on page 11, it talks about the option of engaging a third-party consultant to analyze the costs of operating and maintaining the different facilities. So once we get that, we can look at the comparison on what they're charging us and then work with them to reduce those costs based on what that consultant says, prior to saying we're going to go out and find a third party to take care of these. You know what I mean? Work with the city first to try to get reduced cost versus going out and outsourcing.
Go ahead, Mr. Rollins.
Well, you know, I don't disagree, Aaron, that there could be some potential loss of jobs. But doing our part, I think that analyzing the staff, I think a good part of what we pay the city is staff. And we went from 16 million 2 years ago to 18.5 million in that line item. That's a big jump. And I do think we need to do an audit of the city's facilities, of the city staffing and operation. I think that's something that we just have to do in order to get fiscally responsible. We may find after the pandemic that, fewer staff members are necessary. I don't know how many people they have at Patch Reef, but I know that that community center over there is pretty slow. And probably some of those people could be shifted around. With all of the unfilled positions that we seem to have with the city during, they'll budget for these positions. And I know we've talked about that before. And the positions remain unfilled sometimes at the end of our fiscal year. So if that's the case, why do we keep putting that in there when those positions have been unfilled? And there's a good chance that by moving people around, we could become more efficient and then keep those employees employed in our facilities. And I think the last time we talked about having, I don't know what Steve or Craig mentioned, having, one person at one of our parks being responsible for those kind of things, where we could talk to and communicate and find out what's going on within their department. Best practices study to find out, are we overstaffed? And we may find out that we are, we may find out that we're not. I'd feel a lot better knowing the answer to that question though. And that would probably eliminate the need to take any other remedial actions that in our budget, which we haven't really gotten into,
I feel like since I've been on the district, that has been a component of the budget that we keep asking about, that we never really got an answer on why these positions say they're not filled, yet they're on continuously year after year after year. So, they recommended an audit of the city records and verify the actual cost of operations. Would we so we would hire a third party to do that specifically first. And we would also engage a consultant to analyze the cost of operating to compare the actual cost versus what the actual cost should be. Is that what you're recommending?
The options that we're offering really are not mutually exclusive. And I think there's a number of options we're trying to lay out to the district. I'm not sure that we have a specific recommendation, but everything you said is in fact a viable option to engage a consultant, to put an RFP out for one park or one facility or multiple facilities, but just some way to get a better sense of what the city is proposing in the context of their annual budget, whether it's fair in the market, whether there's a better opportunity in the private sector. It'll give you a better gauge as it relates to the numbers that you're seeing from the city.
Also, does the city do an audit of their own budget? I mean, they must have some sort of process to verify what they're charging us is what they should be charging us, right? I don't know.
They're required to do their annual audit, which is a statutory requirement, whether it specifically goes into each of the various parks and analyzes the park budgets that they submit to the district. I don't know the answer to.
So we don't know if that's included in their audit for the city itself.
I do not know whether that's in the city's audit. They are required to do an audit, which is a statutory independent audit every year that's finished within several months after the end of the fiscal year. So they are required to do an audit, but to what extent it drills down into their park facility budgets, I don't know the answer to.
Go.
I want to get back to something that was brought up before. You mentioned the district submitting an operational plan to the city so that the city could put together a budget. To my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. So just for the audio version, we've never done it. Are we required to do it? My thinking is, I don't know that we have the manpower or the person power to submit such an operational plan.
We have the sole discretion, the language in the ILA, to establish a full and complete operation and maintenance plan for at least 4, if not more, of the facilities.
Okay, so we have, that's at our
We
discretion.
have
then.
the
It's
sole
not-
discretion to do it. That is correct.
Yeah. That might not be a bad idea for some of the properties. First thing that comes to mind is Red Reef and Gumbo Limbo. We spend a lot of money. I'm sorry, let me be more specific. The Red Reef property, including Gumbo Limbo and the executive course and the beach, we spend a lot of money there. We have nothing that comes back, even though the city, it's a source of revenue for the city and as well for the Friends of Gumbo Limbo. So that's something I would like to look into. And more to the subject of looking at outside sources, I think an independent audit of what we spend at each park would be a great idea, because the city is required to do an audit, but that seems to me to be an after the fact action. It's okay, this is what we spent in fiscal 2021. And the audit says, yes, that's exactly what you spent. You spent X, you say you spent X dollars, the audit says you spent X dollars. I think what we need is a before the fact action, so that before we okay a budget, let's just say for Patch Reef, and the city's asking, say, for $1 million, that we know in fact that they will spend $1 million, that it's, you know, that this number has some support and documentation and in what the city is actually doing. I think we can save some money. I think the city can save some money. And to your comment, Aaron, about staff, I don't want to see anybody lose their job. That's, you know, that is, I just don't want to see it. But on the other hand, we also have a fiscal responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to our constituency. And if they have 20 people to do a job that could be done by 16, then we need to only be paying for 16. Maybe make recommendations as to where the city can transfer the other 4, but we really can't, you know, be the guy that, or the body that pays for people that don't need to be there. And, you know, I don't, what we need to do is be able to reconcile the two so that the city doesn't really lose staff, but that we don't end up paying for what we shouldn't be paying for.
So what you're saying, there are 2 issues here. One is a potential RFP to look into outsourcing, let's say for one park, and then also for an audit of all the properties. So this is, you know, 2 different
Yes.
processes.
I would do the audit before I did the RFP so that, you know, we know from whence we speak.
Mr. Rollins?
I think you need to define what type of an audit you're looking at. Are we doing an audit to match up, you know, checks that they've written against invoices they've received? I mean, that's one type of an audit. The other is to verify the charges that they've sent to us are accurate. And then there's the staffing. And so I think we need to define what we're talking about. I think we need to do all 3 of those things in order to be you know, fiscally responsible, like you're talking about, Steve. And I don't know, but you know, there's an audit committee going on, Craig, and there could be whoever this, you know, we select as our auditor. Perhaps that could be something that they could address at least a component of this, are the charges that they're billing us accurate? I suspect they probably are, but I know over time, we found some inconsistencies in that. And on a budget our size, you're probably going to find some inconsistencies, but it'd be nice to know, to say to folks, well, we're fiscally responsible. We're looking seriously at, ways to reduce expenses. If it involves staff reductions, as you said, that's our fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we're not paying for somebody that we don't need. I don't think that's the case. I think that there may be some unfilled positions, and there may be an opportunity to move some existing staff into those positions and close down a position. It's not necessary where there's duplicity. We just don't know that.
First, as Jacob outlined, we have an obligation to pay the city, to reimburse, that we are a taxing authority. So let's not kind of forget that. The city is the operating authority in this relationship. I guess there's an opportunity to put a plan together and then to review the budget. But we reimburse, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brianne, on actual costs. So, and as I think Sam and Brianne and I learned this morning, that the actual cost takes a long time to develop. And it doesn't happen overnight. And it for actual costs for the year, basically could take all the way into March. So it's a long time to develop, and it's not easy to develop. And when you're an operating entity doing things, you have accounting systems, you have project management systems, you have staff, you have a lot of things going on with it. And I really appreciate the fact that it was brought up to look at these different things, because we're all fiscally concerned and want to be fiscally responsible. But I'd also suggest that in using probably Steve's, you can get a lot more with honey than you can with vinegar. And I think it should be a collaborative relationship with them to look and with the city staff to further define what is good and what's bad. I think they know. I mean, I've been on teams in my own company that look for opportunities in how we do what we call smart spend. And I think that has to evolve, and that culture has to develop within the city. And to come in with a hammer and say, okay, we're going to just say you only need 5 people or 10 people. I don't want to be the one to do that. I think they need to be the ones to develop it, and we have to encourage it and give them the resources to do so. And so, yeah, we could do it by saying we're going to outsource a park, and that just kind of makes everyone a little bit more nervous. These are the people who are doing all the work and greeting people at the front desk, and I don't think it's fair to them to do that. So I'd rather kind of, take this off the table a little bit and say, look, we all know that we are faced with a very tough challenge this cycle. And we've basically said that we would like to, we propose an initial millage increase, and that's what stimulated this discussion. We're doing our part. I don't think we're going to solve that between now and September. And so I'm confident right now, unless I hear a giant gift coming in from the city for, a donation from something or another, we're going to be where we're at with the millage rate, and it's a safe millage rate for us to operate next year and possibly into the future. But in the meantime, I think we don't want to let this go. I think it is important that we work with the city staff to generate a plan to go park by park and look at the opportunities. And if they need resources to further, stimulate the discussion. In my mind, there's parts of Sugar Sand that can close down at night. It just doesn't need to be in the whole community center. Does not need to be open till 10 o'clock. I was kind of shocked it is. Same thing if that's true over at the Rutherford Center at Patch Reef. There's more to do there, but let the city kind of evolve with it. Give them the resources to an assistant to facilitate some of these things and see where we go with that. And then you can go to those other more extreme options if you want to look at that, but give them the opportunity to do it. And I think having a good plan we have the obligation to set that plan in place. So I think we need to kind of work to get that out of this that they can agree to.
Mr. Engel, you had your hand up.
I don't want to push the city out, without good reason. I would rather give the city, I guess, what you would call a right of first refusal. You know, if we're thinking, well, okay, this project cost $1 million and they're saying it costs $1.2 million, to sit down with the city and work out a compromise, or, you know, get down to the nitty gritty and figure, well, what's needed, what's not needed. You know, I look at outsourcing as a last resort, but by the same token, the city needs to know that that is an option that's available to us, because we just can't go on increasing our millage rate. We can't go on saying, well, all right, you want $2.2 million for the Hornley Maintenance Facility, even though phase 2 hasn't even gotten to the drawing board, much less off of it. You know, at some point, the city has got to listen to us and, you know, and take our resources into account. They have to know that our pockets aren't bottomless. And I think this has been an ongoing problem with the city, at least since I've been on the commission.
Well, Craig raises some good points, and it's not our intention to dictate to the city what positions they have or what they should fill, but I think that I'd like to have some comfort that they're analyzing those and in some way know what their staffing needs are. And as I mentioned earlier, on the on the budget for 2021, we have budgeted 16 million for park operation and maintenance. The projected number is going to come in at 15,684,000. You know, some of that could be from COVID, you know, related savings, but then the projection for the budget this year was 18,267,000. I asked Brianne earlier today what was entailed with there, and she said mostly you know, staffing, and so there's got to be an explanation as to why, you know, the staffing, that cost went up almost $2 million over our budget in 2021. So, and that's a question that we should ask. That's a very specific question. Give me your answer. And I think that digging into this a little bit more, you know, the city, it knows that they're going to have to sharpen the pencil a little bit because we're trying to fill their request, and the way they can help us do that is by them becoming as efficient as they possibly can. So, and that's really the whole purpose of asking these questions of Jake and having them explore the ILA. Is that what are our options? You know, how can we be better partners with the city, and how can we be more efficient? And that's exactly what I think we are charged to do with our constituents. And you know, we're looking at a big number like this. You know, we're and at the budgeted figure and the revenue that we come in, we're going to be $4 million short without making our adjustment in the millage rate. But at the same token, there's should be some understanding with the city that in fulfilling their requests, we also have other things, because we are an independent taxing district. So we do have other things we have to consider. And if it means deferring their project for a year while we get our house in order, so be it. And we don't really know, how we're going to end up with this fiscal year, because where are we? How far into invoices are we, Brianne? Have we gotten through? Okay, so we've got 6 months worth of invoices from the city, is what you're
Right.
saying. Okay, so we have another 6 more months. So, okay, so, and most of that was during COVID, when a lot of the activities, Sugar Sand Park, the community center wasn't open, the Willow Theater wasn't open. So did we have some changes in staffing over there? I mean, that'd be a good question to ask.
I have met with Michael. Michael and I met last week or a couple weeks ago, and we talked about the staffing. We talked about reducing hours at certain facilities. So he's on board with it. And then one of the requests was to extend the hours here at Swim and Racket Center, and it just so happens some staff have resigned from their positions here. So we're gonna start making those moves now and moving some of the Patch Reef positions over to this center to work the front desk, and we can extend the hours that way and reduce the hours at Patch Reef just to start making some of those changes while we can now. I'm meeting with admin tomorrow to go through it, and then I'll send out the full changes and hours and all that stuff, and we'll update the websites, but we can extend the hours here, reduce positions, and eliminate some hours at Patch Reef. All in one.
And while you're talking, find out how many unfilled positions we have.
I did request that. I requested the whole position chart, so we're looking at that.
Thank
But
you.
we're starting to make changes now. Some of that.
Good job.
Brian, you've mentioned that even with the reduction of hours, that it's only going to be possibly $500,000.
Would be across the board. I don't know the totals because we still have to evaluate. I don't want to put a number on any of it yet until we know for sure where we're at with everything.
I think we'll have those numbers before we have to submit our budget.
We won't be able to make all the changes over the course of the summer, but we're going to start making some now, but it'll add up over the course of time with a lot of these facilities, and some of these positions just will move as they transition to other jobs in the city and things like that.
It's your pleasure. Mr. Engel had his hand up first.
Yeah, the other thing, for at least for this year, we're looking at an additional $4 to $5 million in expenditures that we didn't have in our budget last year that we're obligated to. We're obligated to what is it, $1.5 million for beach renourishment?
There's over 2 million for beach renourishment. in
I'm
the
sorry?
budget. It's over 2 million for beach
Over
renourishment.
2 million. Okay, we have an increase in CRA. It could be anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000 based on what our millage rate is. We have the DeHornley project is another 2.2 million. And we're expected to fund all of these things. DeHornley, we may be able to back out of because of a financial situation, but the others we can't. Those are things that we have to pay come down there or back over there. So, you know, I think what I'm looking for is, it's been my experience while I'm on this board that whenever we get a request for personnel, that there are positions, I'm willing to bet that there are slots that are in the current budget that have not been filled since I've been on this board, but they're in the budget. And I don't know how to get the city to break that habit. Just if you expect to fill the budget in this fiscal year, put it in the budget. If you don't, take it out. You know, it can't be used as a bargaining chip because that's where it usually ends up. And, you know, I'm just looking for a way for us to save money. And I'm looking for the city's cooperation. And, you know, I just like to see more cooperation.
Sir,
So, Madam Chair, my recommendation based on all this is, you know, so far we're obligated to fulfill what we have for the budget. So let's move forward with that. I think there is merit to asking for the engineering principles for the $2.2 million assessment on the building. So we should ask for that. I'd like to recommend that we work closer with the city on developing next year's plan. And part of that plan will include the staffing that we currently, you know, what we have today, and it can include benchmarking. It can also include providing resources for the city and the district to work together to change their staffing. You know, I think we have the same values as a city that we don't want to see people let go in any way or form, but through attrition, retirements, COVID changes. I think there's plenty of room to develop it, but to Steve's point, we want to make sure the budgeted staff positions are really defined. And what are they? And so does that mean there's 25 people in one location or 100 people in one location? I think that really does need to be defined, and that would be our plan going forward. And we need to stick with it. So that will help, provide a little bit more fiscal discipline. And I think in the past, we've asked before about different staff additions. There's no reason why we can't do that here. And I think we should ask for that $2 million or $3 million change in staffing. What happened, what changed? But it is important that we let the city do their job. And right now we need to continue with the things that are out there. And I appreciate the fact that we need to have a deeper bench, and we need to clean up our balance sheet. We need to add some reserves to it so that you can actually do something at Ocean Breeze. And I would hope that we could work with the city to do whatever we're going to do together out there. So that's my thought.
So we're directing Director Harms to work with the city to try to,
Steps I would do is one, ask for the engineering principals, Director Harms, to focus on this 2.2 million. How did they get to the 2.2 million? Give us some more background on the whole thing. I think we have to fund something of it. May not like the timing of it. Still want to have phase 2 of the Hornley. But that fits with what are we doing at Ocean Breeze? What are they doing out at the Boca Country Club? We should develop that this year. Let's get that defined. And then I think we need to talk to the city of how do they want to approach this staffing so we can redo things, form teams within the parks. I'm a big fan of one person being in charge of it. When they put together the Boca Country Club, there's one person in charge. Well, that tells you something. We need to do the same, in all the parks. There needs to be someone in charge, one person, not scattered over a bunch of people because they're too big.
well, that's not, it's the city's option to do
That's
that.
right. It is the city's option, but we can have a say in it. And that's how we kind of define that plan a little bit so that next year we're in a far better position to work together and say, this is the plan we all agreed upon. Let's move on that plan. I just think it's kind of late in the game to do anything radical or different. And if we're at that stage, it makes sense to do an RFP or an audit or something, in 6 months' time, we can do that. But let's give everyone an opportunity to kind of work through it. That's my thoughts.
Thank you. Mr. Rollins?
Part of the problem, Craig, is that it is kind of late in the game, but it's not our fault. I mean, the budget was probably, I'm not sure when we got this packet, but it was later than normal. And understand that with some new software changes or whatever's going on over there, it was not possible to do. Everything gets blamed on COVID. It's late because of COVID. But I think that we should say to the city also is that help us do a better job for you by giving us this information earlier. And a lot of times they don't want to give it to us because LEAF hasn't approved it. Well, I have clients who need certificates of insurance right away for projects that they bid. And we comply with those things as quickly as we possibly can. And there's no reason why we can't have the same kind of relationship where we get this information, even if it's in bits and pieces, but let us have some shot at this early enough to where we can make some changes. And where if we say to them, no, we don't want to spend this money, then they can adjust their budget accordingly. And I don't know that, has the city approved their budget, Brian? They have not. Okay. So I think that, one of the things that when we were just talking about some things we could do to make ourselves more, to increase our balance sheet, Craig, is by maintaining our reserves and so that we can do projects without having to borrow money. Whereas I know that Giordano, the architects that were here today, they think they were awarded the bid for phase 2, but I don't know that they're planning to do that in this next fiscal year. And if that's the case, Sure, I want to value engineer this project, the maintenance building. I think the cost per square foot there is outrageous. And I'd like to see what's in it. And I don't know whether that's available yet. Is it, Brianne? The drawings, have they? Okay. Well, it might, now might be a good time for us to take a look at it. Not that we could value engineer it, but maybe there's some components in there that we think might be a little rich to have in there. Maybe you don't need to have everybody having their own little individual office. Maybe cubicles are sufficient. I don't know. I'm not a contractor to say, but I would certainly like to see what those bid documents look like before they release, in case there's some things that we feel like we might need to address.
Yeah, address that. Couple things. One is, again, we go back, we pay, based on budget, but it's actually paid on actual. So if the costs come in lower, we should be better off. And then the other aspect of it, I don't know that we really have a role to tell them anything about what that building looks like. I know you have a lot of personal, great experience of knowing what is needed from the 20+ years you had here on it. I think that's valuable. And I think that needs to be articulated in there, just like all of us do. I agree there would be nicer, better collaboration to say, what is it you're building and how is it going to serve the needs? I have no idea what that design facility is, but I think that we have an obligation to pay some portion of it. And it's the city's job to go figure out how to do that. They have a whole process that they have to go through, which is unfortunate that it has to be very lengthy and time consuming and usually expensive. So it's probably going to come in the full 2 million plus. Just got to we only have really say on what that number is, but we're paying actual. That's a good thing. And, usually the city, when they do big projects, they do them pretty good, so it's not it's going to be first class. This is in our BOCA standards thing. So I guess our only option on the maintenance facility over there is to say, we knew we needed it for many years. They're coming to it at not the best year. Let's see where it goes. They still have to come in at actual, but it's important to know upfront, how is it engineered to we get to that? Because if the cost got cut in half and we still have to pay 2 million, what happens? There's something, we didn't know what we were doing when we started it. So I think we need to have that understanding. They have to prove to us and they need to present to it. That sure would be nice. That's a better partnership on those things. So we'll get there.
Well,
Are you making a move to value engineer the maintenance
No.
building?
I'm not.
Yeah.
I want to let them do their job. We'll come back, we'll pay for actual. It's in our budget. If they come in lower, we'll come in.
Hey, Craig, I hate to disagree with you in some respects, because I go back to the Hornley project. That project was planned by the city. They put a budget item on there of $24 million and then did 60% of the drawings and shipped it over to us and said, you think you could finish this project? So we put it out to bids. We value engineered it. We got the cost down when we got the bids back in, came in under $10 million. And after looking at the plans, they had underplanned the underground utilities, so ran it up the cost up to about just under $14 million. I think we do a better job of that ourselves, but that's just my opinion. I feel like that I don't want to sugarcoat it. I have not found too many opportunities where the cities come in under budget. And consequently, I don't want to end up, if their request is 2.2 million for our share of that building over there, it could be more. We set a maximum on the tower that said I'm sorry, the pumps and piping. We said we're not paying anymore, then this is our limit. And maybe that's a good way to hold our line on our expenses. Say, okay, well, we'll share in that, but our share is this. And if it comes in less, great. If it comes in more, it's on you. These are philosophical questions that we're having, but I think it's important to to get to the details like we've already talked about with the staffing and stressing on the city to work with us in that regard. Like I agree with you, we should work with them. I don't want to be telling them what to do with their shop, but I do want them to know that we're conscious about our expenses and we want to do the best job we can for them and for our constituents. So.
Mr. Engel.
Just one comment, and I think we need to move on. With regard to how much we actually spend, if we're budgeting 18 and change for staffing, and they come in at 16 and change actual, so that's $2 million we set aside for something that wasn't spent, that could be better spent someplace else. So my point is, if they can do a better job of defining what their actual staffing expenses are, and that figure comes back lower, then we can release that money and use it someplace else and plan to use it someplace else. I think that's really where the problem is. It's great that they continually come in under budget, but one of the side effects is that we're setting aside and reserving money that they say they're going to spend that they don't spend. And now we can't use it in that same fiscal year for something else. So that's really what I'm looking for. Just, we'll work with you every step of the way. We understand that there are certain guidelines that you have to observe. And there's certain best practices that you use in arriving at your numbers. But let's see if we can come closer to the budget being closer to the actual costs. And if we can do that, I think everybody benefits from it. Okay, and
Keep in mind, the 105 mill rate, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
This is your conservative number. So unless we're paying all the costs and that's it. So I think it is what it is, and hopefully they come in lower. But keep in mind, we've experienced this past year, pumps and piping project came in over. There are things that are going to go over, things that are going to go under. We have no control over those. That's the point of the whole discussion with Jake looking at the ILAs, looking at the things. There's definitely, we pay the bill.
Yeah, well, we need to look at this going forward. Not this year may be too late, but for fiscal 22-23 and 23-24, if we can be better prepared.
That's your plan. That's where we help facilitate everyone on the people and the staffing, and we come and when you're all done with it, come the spring, we have our agreed upon plan of what it is, and that's our plan, I think. And so then we can do that.
Okay, let's move on to item number 4, the Red Reef interlocal agreement discussion. Mr. Rollins, did you want to lead that off?
Yeah, I brought that forward to point out the fact that we did have the opportunity to negotiate with the city on that agreement. I don't think that now's the time to be talking about termination of this agreement. I think we have an obligation to the city to fulfill their budget requirement. But I do think that it's an opportunity for us to have some discussion regarding the funds that come in from not that they're a hell of a lot, the parking meters, but I mean, let's have a true partnership if we can. I do think that at some point in the future, we need to visit that. And I think that we need to keep that in our pocket for future discussion. I don't feel like it's necessary that we come to any decision on that this evening. I simply brought it up to let you know what options were available if we're looking for ways to save money. We got our start by being involved with the purchase of the Shine and the Butler track, now known as Red Reef. I think for us to abandon that obligation there would not be a positive move for the district, since we are beaches and parks. But I do think that it may be an opportunity for us to parlay that into some other opportunities with the city. And that's the way I'd end that.
Yeah, like we've been talking, to do anything this year is, I think it'd be counterproductive. But going forward, to let the city know that, you know, this is one of the items in our toolbox. And we'd be willing to forego it in return for example, parking meter revenue or a share thereof. I don't think would be a bad idea. Again, what we're looking at is not so much for this upcoming fiscal year, but going forward. And how can, between us and the city, clean up our mutual act and, you know, and give our constituents what they deserve, which is the biggest bang for their tax dollar.
Just one final, I think as we look at the treasurer's report, it's an opportunity for us to dig into some of these as on an ongoing basis. So we're not waiting, like you said, Steve, to, and I know that I've never gotten involved at the depth that Craig has with that, but I think that that's an opportunity for us to raise the questions at that point about, I mean, we just look at the lump sum on the treasurer's report. We don't see the individual components. And I think that it might be helpful that from time to time to do that, peek under the hood. So.
Is that, look, Beach and Parks is our name, so I think we're obligated to continue on. I think we all want to continue on, so. But on the parking revenue from the meters, that's should be part of the whole plan. And so I don't know that we've formally requested the parking meter revenue, but you got to look at the costs. So it's cost and revenue. And so each location should be looked at, and that would also probably come out in some kind of audit. I would say we can address it that way. And lastly, I think there is a desire to have a master interlocal agreement that we all decided to table. So unless there was a fair and reasonable proposal for both parties, that would be nirvana for this group and the city to have a master interlocal agreement that we all agreed upon. And I would say it's something that is still doable. But we always got things in the way. And so let's think about that one. We got to get through one thing at a time.
All righty, it's time for the approval of payroll and invoices. Do I get a motion, Mr. Ernst?
I have a not too large of an invoice this time, payroll and invoices of $30,462.36.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, reports and discussion items, Executive Director Harms.
Commissioners, Commissioner Ernst may speak on this too, but the audit committee met today and are planning on holding interviews in this room next Monday, beginning at 1 o'clock. They're open to the public. I am meeting with Rec Services staff again tomorrow, like I mentioned earlier, to finalize the Patry changes and move some staff around to extend the hours here too. So I will email out those changes to everybody so everybody's aware of them, and we'll update the websites accordingly. Ocean Strand went through the review process again, and this time there was minimal staff comments. So those plans are just being updated with, you know, like instead of, they wanted a silt fence line around the mangrove area, now they want a double silt line. So they're just notating those different changes on the plans. Hopefully we get the permits rather quickly after that. And then at Boca Chica, the work there, all the trees have been trimmed and the debris is getting removed at this point. It should all be out of there this week. And then we're working on getting permitting for the demolition of the building and then the fencing permit too. The holdup for permitting is not city staff. It's actually, we're just working with FPL. And we've had some utility issues, but we also want to recognize Lisa Wilson Davis at Utility Services for her help. She's been outstanding with working with Melissa to get this continuing to move forward and trying to resolve some of the issues we're having with the locating some of the utilities out there. So I want to thank her and recognize her for her help. And as far as anything else, I just have future agenda items was a donation gift policy that I was working on to finish my certification through the special districts. I'll resend that to everybody. We talked about an RFP for an architect engineer for multiple projects. And then more importantly, at the next meeting for the budget discussion, I'd like to talk about district CIP projects and get input and prioritize some of those things that we will fund for our parks and manage for our parks and facilities. And that's it.
Thank you. District Council, who would
Thank you,
like to take that?
Thank you, Madam
Okay.
Chair and Commissioner. I just had one thing to conclude my comments, and on a personal and professional note. The memo that we prepared was prepared with a lot of care and concern for the issues that you've been talking about now for the past number of months. We didn't have a destination specifically geared towards a recommendation. I think that Jacob's presentation fairly and very accurately reflects our considerations that were given for each of the ILAs and how they interrelate in some respects and are different in other ways. Our objectives were quite pure. The objective was to give you the best information that we could, given our legal research through the memorandum process. And I appreciate your having read it. I know you did, because we've had some individual conversations about it, and I know you discussed it in great detail this evening. We do stand ready to assist you in any way we can in the context of the ideas and suggestions that you all created this evening during the exchanges. It's not the final analysis. There are other things that we could have discussed in the memorandum. We try to be responsive to your specific questions and concerns over the past number of weeks and months. And appreciate again that you spent the professional time to take a look at what we actually crafted in that regard. And we stand ready to assist you in any way we can, as if and when you make a decision to proceed forward. But timing does matter. You are fiduciaries. We have read the special act backwards and forward and know what the words mean and what we believe they were intended to say, and hope to do whatever you need for us to do as your lawyers on a from time to time basis. And thank you for listening. Always appreciate it. Thank you.
Commissioner Wright?
Back to the Red Reef ILA real quick. I'm okay with holding off on going to the city right now, if that's the consensus of the board. But I think we've been putting this off, knowing that this ILA needs to be looked at. We don't know when this pandemic's going to end. It keeps going on and on and on, coming back, going away, coming back. So I think the sooner we kind of get this on the table with the city, the better. That's my opinion on it. And then with the audit that the city gets done every year, can we look to see if the beaches and parks portion is included in that, in their audit? Is there no way to like look at the staffing that is included? Just so we can get some sort of idea, any kind of idea.
Sorry, I forgot to use my microphone. What I said was that we would have to work with our auditing firm to get an audit done of the bills.
Just to see if we can get some sort of idea on the cost and, any kind of.
I don't know if they would audit the cost. I think they would just audit the
No, not an
charges. but-
audit. No, the one that Jacob was talking about that gets done every year with the city.
That's just their internal audit for what they've spent. I mean, I'll send it to you and we'll talk more about it, and I'll show you what they
Before we
do.
spend any money on anything
Yes, I'll
else,
show you
just to get
what they
more
do and we'll talk.
information.
Yep.
Commissioner Engel?
I think I've said enough for one night.
Okay. Mr. Ernst?
Couple things. One is, there's been some mention that golf is a mandate for golf. And so I want the group to go away to think about that mandate for golf with, given that the city has taken on the Boca Country Club and given that they haven't, fully operated it. I am not convinced, from others that I've talked to, that there is a quote mandate for golf. I do agree with a golf concept, a golf park, something, out there with it. But if we think there's going to be something very elaborate on golf, I would ask that before we do anything, we poll our district to find out what the community really wants. And I do not, that RFI that went out, I do not take all of the residents from Boca Chica writing in saying they want to golf. That's something they want in their backyard. And so if you want to have a real survey, let's do it. Let's have a survey of the community and say, what do you want? And I'd rather let this go down the path of let the architects develop and foster it. But if we're going to tell them there is a mandate for golf to do, and I keep hearing a golf park being a driving range, an executive course, and all the other things, I don't know what it's going to be. I'm open to an idea of something of it, but I don't want to tell whoever we hire, go do that, that there's this mandate, because I don't believe there is a mandate. And I think you're missing the opportunity if we don't do another Sugar Sand, or we don't do something that is really special out there. It's just a great opportunity, and I'd really like to see us do something with it. I thought we saw good proposals today that we'll be able to make a proposal on that, which is good. Second point I'd like to mention to the group is that I had the opportunity just briefly to talk with Palm Beach School Superintendent and the board chair there. And I just asked them, what are their needs? And I was surprised to find out that the school district has a lot of needs, particularly around recreation. And we should not forget the fact that they've built, 2 wonderful schools. They're building a 3rd one, but they didn't design them with the recreation needs in mind. And so Addison Meisner is missing, the middle school field space. And so I think we need to step up for that part of it. And then we also should consider Ocean Breeze as a portion for whatever the school district may need, or nonprofits. And I really would like us to be sure that we partner with the nonprofits. I know that they have a need for swimming centers that are missing. We have a swim center in Boca, at Boca High, but there is a need for the other schools as well. This could be a universal facility too. So just keep an open mind is my point on that, and keep building the relationships. Thank you, Aaron, for doing what you've done at Verde. And I think we should build on those other partnerships as well.
Quick side note on that. I mean, Calusa has absolutely no playing fields whatsoever. It's a field full of weeds and red ants, and a piece of clay that has no white outlining whatsoever.
What was, which area was that? Was that the Verde?
No, this is at Calusa
Oh, at
Elementary,
Calusa,
where my
okay.
youngest one goes, and it's the same with Verde. Those are the 2 schools that I'm familiar with. But I do know that the other elementary schools don't have playing fields either. So I don't know how we're supposed to foster. Don't get me wrong, you don't need a professional soccer field on an elementary school grounds to have a good elementary school, but it is nice for them to be able to go out in the field and not worry about being totally attacked by red ants, which the principals have to go out and actually put poison on the red ants. Our vice principal does that every single day, and they have to. They do. So I totally agree with you on that. If we can help in any way in terms of developing a ILA with building some fields and being able to use them in some capacity as well, I think that would be amazing. So.
Mr. Rollins?
Pump the brakes. I will tell you that the relationship with the schools vary by principal. And Boca Middle, I know one youth basketball program has done a lot for that school. I know they catch a lot of crap from that principal, to the point where they criticize them about parking, but yet they'll bring in a I-9 group and let them park adjacent to the school and occupy the space over there. So I just want to be careful with what we're committing to. I think we've done a great job. We get reimbursed $25,000 for the $500,000 that we spend over at Don Estridge. That's been a great relationship over there. But with the 6 cents that the school, we passed that for the city, for the school district, we've got a plate full right now with things. If we can help, I'm all about that. But when you're planning a middle school and you build it right to the max where you don't leave any space for recreation, I'm not sure I'm responsible for that problem. We had an opportunity to bring in Boca, Addison, is it Addison Meisner, to Sugar Sand. They were looking at some parks add some property over there, but it just wasn't, it just wasn't going to be compatible with the neighborhood, with the park and the preserve area that we had. I don't know how to deal with it. I'm a youth sports guy. I like recreation. I'd love to help the schools when I can, but at the same token, it can't be all on us, so.
Yeah, I guess my only suggestion was, you're right, but we have land, we have Sugar Sand. They were asking for a whole, place for their school at Sugar Sand. Now it's just, okay, what about a field house? What could they do? Let them build it. I'm all in on, we're not going to pay for it, but we also have Ocean Breeze that there's 212 acres, if that, if they come along with the swim center or something, why would we want to stop that? That could be for the community. That they have resources. And by the way, look how fast they built these schools.
Well, they certainly did it faster than they built the Wildflower, that's for sure. But and is it my turn now? Okay, I'll be real quick. I don't have any preconceived idea about there being a mandate about golf, Craig. And I know everybody has their own opinion about what we want to put there. I want these architects, the one that we select, hold community hearings and let's hear what the community says. And if they say they want to have disc golf, I'll swallow that, because I just can't imagine putting that out there. Although, like the guys from was it Miller Lake and that Plantation golf course, I was impressed with those kind of ideas. 212 acres, we can do a lot. I'm not tied to any one issue. I've been a proponent of having some type of a golf event over there, not a 18-hole or 36-hole golf course, but there's plenty of room there to do what I think everybody wants if we listen to and cooperate. And bear in mind, with the recreational master plan study that we're talking about, there's got to be some space there. I mean, who the heck thought pickleball would be a sport that it is today? And so I don't think we need to plan out the park completely. It's going to be phased in anyway. So I think there's opportunity there, but I'm a golf guy. I like golf. I'd like to see some kind of golf component, but I'm not going to tell these guys, and I want to hear what the community has to say. So I'm done now, Chair. We're done.
Okay, well, Mom's going to have something to say here. The community has been, I don't know about your emails, but I've been getting emails, golf, golf, golf. I mean, not the championship course, not the, the full Magilla that we were looking at before, but to replace the 30,000 rounds from Boca Muni. And I think we have a responsibility to listen to them. We don't have to build it tomorrow, but they're losing their short course. And the young people that I see out playing golf, there are tremendous opportunities for these kids, but they need a place to practice. And the schools don't have it. So I'm not saying that I'm with Bob here. I say we listen to the community and get their opinions, but let's go in this with an open mind instead of saying, well, we don't need a golf component. Well, we might just wind up with a golf component. And it doesn't have to be the conventional, say like Lakeview in Delray. It doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to have 18 holes. It can have 9 holes. They can be creative in how they program it. And there's room for everybody out there. So Mom says, that's all I have. And I think Brianne covered our future agenda items. So Mr. Engel.
Before I engage in my usual comment at the end of the night, I would like to just point out one thing about golf. I don't have a problem personally with golf as being a component at Ocean Breeze, but the city, at least city council, has repeatedly stated their opposition to any kind of golf at Ocean Breeze. And without the city's cooperation, we can't build a golf course even on the east side.
Well, that's
So-
because we're not in agreement here.
Okay, well, no, that's because.
Part of it's part.
No,
because we're
that's
not in
because
agreement.
the city, virtually everybody on city council has told me, no golf. And we could be 5-0 in favor of golf or 3-2 against it. Doesn't make a difference. They are afraid of any kind of competition for their new golf course. And.
It's not apples to apples, though.
Well, that doesn't make a difference. It's perception is everything. And if they perceive that this is competition, and we've already seen this, they will not cooperate is best way I can put it.
Mr. Rollins?
Don't ever give up, Steve. Don't ever give up. You know, listen, we have an election every 3 years. So the council will change. We may show them what we're doing. They want space there on that project. They want to have some say so. Let's not shut it off, you know.
Well, I'm all ears as part of the, as it relates to whatever is built there. I have an open mind. And on that note.
That's all we need, is have
Okay.
an open mind.
And on that note, move to adjourn.
Do I hear a second? Joanne, would you do a roll call?
Yes.
Yes. Meeting adjourned. Stay safe and see you in 2 weeks.